Tuesday, February 20th to order, 5:03, a little bit late. First item on the agenda is a discussion on the FY19 budget recommendations to file with the Board of Finance. Mika called and said he's going to be about 15 minutes late, and Terry is in New Orleans. There's something done there, yes. Okay, before we start, I have a few budget remarks. I notice there are members of the public here. Although it's a regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen, it is a meeting the Board devotes entirely to discussing the proposed budget for FY19, and we make recommendations to the Board of Finance. There is no public comment at this meeting. As all regular Board of Selectmen meetings on the second Wednesday of the month have public comments, our next meeting is March 14th. If you have public comments, bring it then. If you have something that you wanted to add to this meeting, I've suggested to someone that was just here, write it up, and Mrs. Shaw will send it out to everyone, Boards of Selectmen and Finance. But unfortunately, there is no public comment tonight. Also, the preliminary budget hearing in April is another opportunity for public comment on the budget before it is approved at the annual town meeting in May. To begin tonight's agenda, as I have highlighted for you in the past, I have been focusing my energy on some new and creative approaches to managing our resources, such as vendor consolidation, eliminating redundancy, and sharing services. My participation with SCROG and our town's membership in CCM and COST all help us make the connections necessary to advance these discussions. Our efforts will continue throughout this fiscal year and next to help us save money. With that as background, I will just briefly highlight some of the thinking that went into our work on the budget. Tony and I worked several hours over the last week or so to get this where it is tonight. Under Tony's direction, I've been trying to capture efficiencies, a little savings here and a little savings there throughout the fiscal year. In this budget document, we would like to embed these savings in our budgets going forward. Tony will talk more about this as we go through the documents tonight. Finally, I would like to circle back to two initiatives we are pursuing as the Board of Selectmen that will have positive impacts on our budget in the future. The Connecticut Economic Resource Center, also known as CERC, initiative to help us grow the grand list, and the Sustainable Connecticut State Program that will help us guide us to fiscal as well as environmental efficiencies. We will hear more about both these initiatives as we get up and running. And with our partners in CERC, we are gathering data now, and we will meet in mid-March to kick off what they call the Municipal Fiscal Health Assessment Initiative. They define this as, this analysis will consider how the town's current grand list, public services, and demographics have changed over time, going back 10 years and more when possible, and compared to both the state and a sense of comparable towns to be determined by CERC and the town. It will also identify policies that will help the town strengthen its fiscal health for the future. From this kickoff meeting in March, our timeline is shaping up so that the data analysis will be done by CERC in April and May, and we should be ready for a facilitated discussion in June at our June Board of Selectmen meeting. From there, we can expect a final written report from CERC in the July-August timeframe. Now I will turn it over to Tony, who will walk us through line by line. Just a note on process, especially for our new members, please ask any questions you have on any of these line items, line by line, as we go along. This is your opportunity as a board to think creatively as a team, so chime in, and I promise to do the same. And just for the TV audience, as a reminder, the public opinion survey deadline is tonight. The town library is open till 8 p.m. for survey drop-offs. Also, surveys that are postmarked today will be accepted. Thank you, everyone who has participated. And now I'll turn it over to Tony.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to go through a few of the documents that were handed out. So that were sent out to the board this past week. First is the summary document, which is this document here, and just to outline where we are so far in the process. So we went through the budget, as Beth indicated, and made some initial suggestions or recommendations for adjustments to the budget. This is a process which we'll go through this evening to explain what those are and to hear if you have any further adjustments to the budget. And I can calculate the mill rate here once you're completed, so I can give you an up-to-date, accurate mill rate and expenditure increase. So the budget handed out to you has a expenditure increase so far of 3.51%. You'll see that's illustrated at the bottom of the column there at the end. And so that's a 3.5% increase in expenditures over the previous year. The non-tax revenues, which we'll get into in a little bit, are reduced by 12% over the previous year. And that's a combination, we've discussed this previously, is a combination of a reduction in most of its state grants, combination of education cost sharing grants, and some municipal revenue sharing that was eliminated. And so that leaves your amount to be raised by taxes, or everything. You take the total expenditures minus your non-tax revenues, and you get what you have left is what you have to collect in taxes to balance the budget. That's a 4.73% increase. And so then once you take that 4.73% increase and you apply that to the grand list, the mill rate would be 40.37, which is about 2.36% above the previous year. The state has raised the motor vehicle cap to 45, so that does no longer applies to us. So we are back to having one mill rate. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out is I put the tax calculation sheet in your package. I think this is very important for if you go through the tax calculations, the expenditures and revenues are the same. That's this sheet here. It's a summary sheet. And the thing I wanted to point out was it breaks out the grand list by type of so you can see how the grand list is faring this year, and I think it's very important for our discussion. As you can see, the real estate grand list is up just 0.19%, so it's relatively a flat grand list in terms of real estate, which is the largest portion of our grand list, while the whole grand list increases almost 0.8%, which is actually higher than most recent in the most recent several years, probably. You'll see that the auto is actually down from the previous year slightly. The water company pilot is down slightly. Real estate is up 0.19%. The biggest increase is personal property, which is 16.65%. It's about $8 million. That is because we had an $11 million addition for the fuel cell over at the high school. So that's what's driving that increase. So if you take that out, you'll see we once again have a little growth in the grand list. That's sort of what I wanted to point out. Okay. So we're back to the summary. So I thought perhaps there'd be three parts. It'll be the operating budget revenues, the expenditures, and then the capital budget. Those are the three parts we'll go through. I thought it doesn't really matter which one we do first, but perhaps we do the capital budget.
Works for me.
Does that work
you
for
guys
everybody?
Okay with that? Capital first?
Capital?
Okay. Everybody ready?
So it's towards the end of the package, and it's the 6-year capital improvement program. Okay, so the first item is animal control, and that was reduced from $40,000 to $26,000. Does everybody see where we are there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was after the initiative by the animal control officer to find a cheaper, more of a van for the second vehicle. They're both from several years old. They're both in poor shape. We have two. The first one we purchased already was a SUV, but the second one, after discussing this, she felt that perhaps they just need one vehicle with all-wheel drive that was capable of various terrains. So she's looking for a van, even perhaps a used van that she could use as a second vehicle. So that's the reason for the reduction in that particular line.
She has to be able to have something that she can get crates into.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily
Doesn't have to be a four-wheel drive.
Massive, and it's four-wheel drive. So she said she could do more with less.
So these capital expenditures for the animal control, we get no contribution from the other towns?
We do not, no. That's correct.
So all they pay is a percentage of operation,
That's correct.
and we feel that's a good deal.
That's the current structure.
It's been for a while, right?
Right.
For a few years, yeah.
When is it up?
They're up the end of this year. We could certainly,
Maybe that's an opportunity to revisit that.
we could certainly do that.
Yeah. Anybody have any comments on that? Leave it as it is, or? Okay.
The second one is revaluation. Excuse me. We did not, the total was $50,000. We spread the $50,000 over a 2-year period evenly in 19 and 20. As we discussed in the prior meeting, as Betsy alluded to, she does a majority of the work for revaluation, but requires some outside assistance in various things, including helping to put the summary together, special appraisals, and various costs. So that's what that's for.
So we actually save money with that, right?
We do.
Theoretically. I mean,
We do.
because- yeah.
We definitely do.
Yeah.
Because she does it in the course of her duties, and while she does get a stipend for it, it's much less than what we would pay an outside firm to do it. And she views the properties over a 10-year period as she's doing her normal work. So she incorporates that into her work. So we save a considerable amount of money here.
Mhm.
This budget was, when I first started, it was $250,000, and that was
Right.
15 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that. Board of Education, there's 3 adjustments in this line. First is to kitchen equipment. That was eliminated at the suggestion of the Board of Education, who's able to fund that with existing funds. The
Thank you.
grounds and landscaping was also reduced to 0, but the town is, at least we like to work with the board to try to see if the town can help with some of that work. That's at least our objective.
It came up at a Board of Finance meeting.
Right.
There was a possibility that maybe Public Works could help with some of this. You know, meet with you guys and figure out if we could do it in-house at this point. So we'll start with that.
We'll see if we can.
We'll see if we can. We can't. So that's that.
And the asphalt and paving was moved to 2020. We didn't. It wasn't eliminated. It was just moved out a year. Those are our 3.
And we kept technology
Right.
in. This point. Just pipe up if you have comments or questions, guys.
We go through the capital plan. The next is building maintenance. There were 2 adjustments in this budget. The senior center remodeling was put
I
out.
forgot about building department.
Oh yeah, we didn't
Yep.
make any adjustments to that
Right.
one. Yeah,
That was the
right.
web-based permitting. Having gone through that process for us when we're going, because I'm going to inland wetlands tomorrow night about our cleaning up behind the shelter on behalf of the town of Woodbridge and the board. I went through the process, and there's nothing online. It's old, it's antiquated, and as you remember when Terry presented this, we all kind of agreed it was probably something we
Yeah.
should do. So
It's a regional.
I feel that way, but
Just have a question, and when I saw this, is it possible to number the pages? So we could just refer to page 12 or page 14?
my first year, I don't know.
We could.
Yeah.
I just,
Sure.
Numbering the pages going forward, I don't know.
it'd be a lot easier than searching all over. That's
Sure, okay.
And I apologize to all the other wiser people on the board if they don't need that.
Okay.
So the building department is raising their
Right.
their fees. Is that going to cover that? It will.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's a wash.
Yes. yes.
Not
Actually,
listed
be
as
more
a
than that,
revenue on
too.
here, but that's a good point
Yeah.
there. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're only looking at the.
I know, exactly,
At the
expenses,
expense
right?
side, but
We
the
do get to
revenue
revenue
side,
at some point,
that's
right?
important.
But yes, that's very
Exactly.
important, very good
That's a
suggestion,
point.
yeah.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Now, sorry.
Sure, building maintenance. There are two adjustments in this budget that we would suggest. The first is the senior center remodel, which the town has applied for a grant for that. And we're still waiting to hear on that, so we thought we'd wait another year to see how if we get that grant. The second thing is that we are currently funding through a different grant the bathroom and the ramp for the senior center. So there's currently going to be a project there. So
What ramp?
Say that again? I thought this 150 was for the ramp.
no, that's a different. The 150 is for other improvements.
For modeling. How much is that ramp going to total, do you know?
The I want to say we have a budget for the bathroom and the ramp, about 100,000 for
Okay.
both.
And we're funding both those projects?
We are with a grant that we have existing.
It's a small cities,
Right.
yeah,
Correct.
Right.
That's correct.
can't
But-
remember the whole name.
So this does not include the ramp,
Right.
which is why we removed it.
That's good.
Well, that's
Yeah. We felt at least the discussion last time, it was clear that the ramp was a priority for. So we're doing it with. Currently, we're waiting to finalize that paperwork, hopefully shortly. The second thing is the HVAC repair at the library. It was currently budgeted, put in the request for tax dollars to be used for that project. The investment committee has a fund that it monitors and for the library. It's called the Noyes D. Clark Fund. That's a gift fund that was given years and years and years ago, and it's got a balance of between $350,000 and $400,000 in it. And so I think it's the idea that we would use that fund to do this project. Okay.
Yep.
So those are the two changes there. The fire commission. Country Club Woodridge, you didn't make any adjustments.
Back up into building maintenance number 9, floor refinishing, town hall, meeting room, and kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to do that this year?
There's nothing there.
There's nothing there. That's the.
That's way out in
It's way out 2020.
2023.
Oh, that's the Darling House. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
that's the Darling House,
I
right.
apologize. Okay. I got you.
I know you have to go like this, it's tiny.
No, that's it. Okay.
There's nothing in the country club for environmental remediation.
Right.
Yep, okay. And
The last, let's see, fire commission. So what we did on the fire commission is put together a funding plan, and we'd actually worked with the fire chief on this, but we put together a funding plan on each of the engine 3, engine 9, and engine 7. And engine 7 is an existing lease, so there's not much we can do about that. The air packs is existing also. So those two we have obligations on.
Tony, didn't we do air packs previous budget?
It was a 4-year lease.
Oh, okay.
So that's
that's why it's still,
Oh,
yeah,
there's
there's
still
two-
a couple more.
yeah, there's two payments left,
Couple
yeah.
more left, yeah.
And same thing with the fire, with the engine 7 was a.
Other towns have gotten LoCIP grants for things like air packs.
You could,
Yeah.
yeah, we use
Any
ours
chance
for
we-
paving, but you could do it for that
We
and
use it for what? I'm sorry?
road paving,
Road paving.
yeah. But there are a variety of things you can use LoCIP grants for. We just have historically used it as a part of our road paving plan.
Can we apply for additional LoCIP grants for things like that?
We typically, they give you usually a maximum per year, and we typically use that maximum for our road paving, but that's part of your budget planning. You'll see it come up later in this book. Let's see. So you can see how they're scaled. Typically what we do is we go out to bid, and then we get the bids back, and then the truck is built and delivered, and then the lease payments start. So it's usually a year, or even sometimes a year and a half, or till after the bids are accepted to when you actually make the first payment.
Could
So
be 2 years or more.
it could be even 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends how you structure it.
So for instance, engine 3,
Right.
Is,
So let's take that for an
do
example.
we have that out? Is that out?
They're working on the specs. We're hopeful to get those. I thought he told me that he'd have them to us by the end of in the next couple months. So let's say we get them by June, and we award the bid in July. Then it takes, let's say it takes a year. Then the following July would be, you'd have to, transfer the funds to the vendor. So at that point, you can either do a lease up front, which means you pay the payment up front, or you can do it in arrears, which means you wait another year, and then you make the first payment. So it sort of all depends on where the lease rates are and how our budget is. And
So what's being shown here is
this is up front.
projection anticipation of upfront
Correct.
lease payments.
Correct, yeah.
First one in 2020 on
Right.
that one,
Right.
on 3.
Correct. Because it's, let's see, let's see, you order it in July of 19. That's actually, July of 18. That's actually fiscal year 19. And then following
So we'll
July.
see where we are next year.
Yeah, right. You'll see where you are next year. You may decide we want to put that payment out. Maybe you don't. How much if you put it out a year? How much does that cost? Those are all that will factor into that decision.
So engine 7 is we're
We're
those
paying that
current
off.
payments. Right?
Yeah, correct.
Engine 3 is a pump truck?
Yeah.
What's the technology?
Is there any breakdown of that?
Let's see.
Big book.
There's a server replacement.
Server.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
That's a server.
Yeah, I remember talking about
Yeah.
that during the finance.
We're currently examining all of our IT relationships,
Right.
and this would be one of them. And we're hopeful that we can have some economies of scale and here. So
Yeah, so I just can't remember. I don't think I'm confused. I just can't remember. But we made that arrangement with Amity.
correct. Yeah,
And one with PD and FD, one of them was included in that.
the
right?
PD is.
PD is,
Yeah.
the FD is not.
Yeah, and the fire department had an existing contract with an existing vendor. So that's through June 30th of this year. So what we're going to do is start the process of working with Amity and the fire department to see if that's a good fit and see if it's a good
Right.
match for the fire department. And if so, they're committed to reviewing that process with us.
But this 37,000
That's for
is hardware. That's a
correct.
soft.
That's his hardware.
hardware for a server.
Correct.
One server.
Right. For their server replacement. But, until we go through that process and we get, perhaps Amity's got a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
I couldn't honestly tell you if that's the right number or not the right number.
We don't have any perspective in terms of what the town has done as far as servers are concerned. $37,000.
We actually have to replace one too, and it was roughly the same amount.
Okay.
But so
Well, we held off.
we held off, right?
Because we're waiting for Emily
And
to
the
give us
police and the police
recommendations
also
on it.
has one for next year. So all three of us have servers
So
coming
maybe
up
we
due
can
at the
do
same
better.
time. So we're hoping to. There's maybe some,
Right, because I'd hate to. In 6 months, I think, knock on wood, the server will probably last.
right.
And
Yep.
then,
Right, correct. Yeah, we're hopeful there's
then
some
the Amity folks can
way to
get
do
in
this
there.
together.
Yeah. Okay.
So is there an opportunity at to your point, Joe, another time for us to bring this back? Or if we find that there's a better solution? Or
Sure.
If they're going to get pricing for it, they're going to have to get approval.
Well, I
from
guess
you.
if they do, if we get one for 25, we just have 8,000 in the budget.
Correct. That's
not
correct,
Spent, but we're anticipating this,
right,
right?
Right.
yeah.
but I'm hoping there's a better way, more efficient way to do it.
Plus, if we need 3 of them, maybe there's some economy there.
Right.
Buying 3 versus one.
there's
One
also
now,
cloud services might help too. But
A what? I'm sorry.
cloud services.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Where is that cloud? Thank you.
So are you saying we may not need to purchase this?
I'm saying that there might not be 37, like Joe indicated. Maybe it's 25
But
because
we will need to purchase this.
they definitely have to update their server.
Or,
It's 5-6 years or some
or some,
capacity.
right, like Mika, or some.
Right.
But we're thinking we can hold off until the Amity folks assess it.
Right.
then maybe it's not 37,000.
And they start, I think, the beginning of
March
March,
1st for the
looking over
town.
PD and doing assessment
Right.
here as well.
Right.
So that's why we haven't made any big purchases on servers or anything.
So we're allocating
This one.
37, and we may or may not.
May or may not
spend
decide to
that.
use
Right.
it.
It's,
Right.
it's a placeholder, and we don't know how much.
$10 a household.
Okay.
Let's see. The next adjustment we made was in the police department. And that was to move the building upgrade out into 2020 and 2021.
Oh, the upgrade.
So they have in their budget, if you look at their computer land, the one for 2019, the one this year, is for mobile data units, the ones they have in the cars, that they replace on a cycle, on a schedule. But the following year, you'll see it increases to 60.
Substantially. Mhm.
That's where their server request is. So you'll see all three of us. Ours was last year, fire is next year. Or ours was this year, fire was next year, and police is in 2020.
Well, why is that server so much more expensive than the?
They have a lot more, they have a more sophisticated setup, as I understand, a lot more information, a lot more hardware.
Okay, so the,
You can make a sure if you want to.
well, I'm jumping to the building upgrade.
Oh, yeah.
That's been, certainly since I've been involved, gets pushed out every year.
Me too.
And I think before that even, it got pushed out.
True, that's correct.
And I personally don't have a problem with it getting pushed out, but what I'm wondering is, these numbers look like the same numbers that have been pushed out for
That's
probably 8 years now.
That is correct.
So they are not true numbers,
Right.
number one. And so I'm wondering if there's been any suggestion of, if we're going to just keep pushing it out and it's going to remain a project for the future,
You should get.
should it be updated?
We can
or
get updated
other
figures.
options. I mean, we have one outdated option that we keep pushing out.
We could certainly do
It
that.
seems like a fruitless exercise to me.
And it would just be a matter of taking. One way is to take the existing project and just apply an escalator of some reasonable.
However they
even-
think,
Yeah.
I would actually like to see maybe, I mean, it's an 8-year-old project.
Right.
Maybe there's a
Different
better
way to do
way
it.
of doing it,
Yeah.
a different way of doing
Also,
it.
there might be some differences in terms of things that happen at the school. We move out certain areas, and does that become available to them, which changes what the potentials are,
Okay.
things of that nature. So it might be better to take a holistic future look in terms of other projects that are impacting that building as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they need to take, if they're really serious about it, then they need to take another look at it and
So we
offer
actually know-
something that's not 8 years old that we just keep pushing along, you
Mhm.
know?
A good thought.
Good.
I want to talk about the refrigerators and.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Okay, we might take on contingency.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't make any adjustments in Public Works. They've actually had a lot of reductions in the past few years, including road paving and truck replacement reserve. And we didn't feel to support that 3 years in a row would be advisable. So
There are a lot of residents that have given up their roads, and it's getting worse. They're calling a lot, and people need their roads done. We did the best. The guys were great about the last couple of years, trying to get what they could done with it, but just my personal opinion that we should
So
fund it this year.
if you, David, if you look at the road construction reserve, there's a footnote there, 850,000.
Right.
775,000 of it is from the operating budget, and 75,000 is LoCIP funds.
I saw that.
Yeah, so that's where we apply our LoCIP funds. If you wanted to use LoCIP for another project, and there are a variety of projects you can use it for, it's a local capital improvement fund.
It's all the same bottom
It's all
line.
the same money.
It's the same money,
Yeah,
right?
take it out of one pocket.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
For now.
So these
State.
truck replacement reserves,
That's for a plow truck. We haven't had to purchase a plow truck in
What do
quite a
we
few years.
refer to it as a reserve?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's probably not really
I mean,
accurate.
that's my question, is it really a reserve?
Probably not. You could call it truck. We could retitle
I
that
mean, we're anticipating a purchase.
using the whole thing.
And we're.
Right.
So,
Truck replacement.
I almost got excited when I thought it was a truck reserve.
No.
Because I think on certain things that we know go obsolete and over periods of time, we may be smart in the future to do long-range planning and create some reserves for some of those
Right.
things.
Right. The true reserve.
So that's
True
what,
reserve.
that's what a
Right,
reserve
yeah.
would have meant then.
That's
It
correct.
just-
That's probably not
Taking-
correct. Same thing with the equipment. I'll take those out of there. It's probably not a. Water, bridge and waterways is, and historically when we've had a bridge to fund, we would actually use it as a reserve and put $100,000 in it a year, is what you're talking about, right? So that at the end of 5 years, you have enough to spend on our portion of the bridge. We did that for Bradley Road Bridge and Merritt Avenue Bridge. So this one is actually a reserve. Currently, all we have is, we have stormwater requirements that are from the DEP. We have to measure our stormwater and
It's very complicated.
it is.
Oh. We have a company that helps us do that, right? And
We do.
this is what this goes,
Yeah.
some of this goes toward.
Recreation was outdoor volleyball court. That was actually suggested by John, I believe, in one of our meetings to put that out.
Move it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we kept in the north tennis, right? And then,
Yeah, the tennis repairs, yeah.
so the replacement of the ice skating park, that's over here, right? That's it.
It's up on the corner.
Field.
Yeah,
How,
Fitzgerald.
that's still, yeah.
I'm sure he told, how are we replacing? What are we doing to
If I remember correctly, they had the black asphalt and he was going to do concrete
That's
instead
correct.
because it was more.
yes.
That is
it was more-
correct.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So same footprint and all, we're
Yes.
Right.
just changing because the asphalt
material.
degrades
That's
over
correct.
two.
They
And
said they tried filling it this past year again and it just,
Right.
within a day, it was all seeped out.
And then the black is not for the dark. It's
Conducive
conducive to keeping ice, right.
staying cold with sunlight.
Right, right.
Okay, thanks.
That's the reason.
Is it going to get cold enough to have a natural ice skating rink?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know people?
I don't know if you remember the first couple of weeks of this
Not the
winter.
people in charge of weather, I know.
Exactly.
I remember the first couple of weeks of this winter, it certainly was.
I know.
Yeah, it wasn't, I mean.
But it's been good
and
because
it may
it's
again
setting
for
our
periods of
contingency.
time,
Yeah, we go up and down, but
I mean, your real question, I think, is do we need ice skating?
do we
Right.
need it?
Right. That's a good question.
I'm not sure how much it was used. I'm not an ice skater myself personally, so I don't know if, from that
A
perspective.
couple
how
times
much
when I
it
was going home at night from work, there were lights over there and kids, but not a lot this year. I don't remember.
I can tell you, I see other places, and I know that there's some private residents who have it, and either they're very active.
Yeah.
And the hockey community is very active in
Mhm.
terms of the winter time where they can, but
Mhm.
I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking, I used to use it years ago, and it would stay frozen all winter, and that was very sporadic. I mean, I don't use it anymore,
Yeah,
of
it's
course,
true.
but when my kids were little, I did. And, I wonder whether we should put this off and maybe sometime in the future do a refrigerated rink somewhere, like the recreation department wanted, so you have something to use. Just throwing it out there.
It's up to you guys.
Does it generate any revenue? I don't know the process.
No.
It's just there.
It's
Someone
just there
wants
for
it.
everyone to use.
So we flood it, and if it's frozen, it's
It's
frozen.
frozen. If not,
And
it's
it's not, it's not.
Drains out into the cracks and.
Right.
Oh, and then we have to reflood it?
Right.
I
Yeah.
think they take a fire department truck,
They do,
right,
fire
and
department.
flood it. They use it. So
But
it
if
doesn't-
we resurface it, could we theoretically flood it and then?
I don't know the answer to that. How-
That's it.
Because it seems, so you watch the forecast, and if it's gonna freeze for 2 weeks, you run over and we flood it again. I'm just trying to get an idea of how we do this.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
It
a good
it doesn't
question.
seem like,
The intent,
I don't want to offend anybody, it seems like it's not all that
Not
well
out there.
thought out. It's not a
Actually,
well-oiled
for
machine, and we're spending 20 grand to,
I know the reason that the recreation department wanted to switch to the new material is very specifically so when they put it in, it would stay flooded. Now, if I'm not mistaken,
Well, that's-
periodically, they do have a plan, if you will, They go in there to resurface it, so to speak, put water on it, so
Right.
because of the usage and
Right.
the melting and things of that nature. But the whole intent was so that they didn't have to continually fill it.
That makes a little more
based
sense.
on the materials that they're currently
Mhm.
using.
Yeah, so
Well,
that
that
would
was-
make more sense.
It's it seems to be something popular, and I'm just saying this from the perspective of being at those meetings. This seemed to be something that was missed because people have been asking about it and whether we were going to do it this year, and then we eventually opted that we just couldn't because the water wouldn't stay. So, but certainly understand
So
your
we
point.
haven't actually, has it been utilized this year?
Not at all.
Not
Not
at
at
all.
all. No, we didn't. Yeah, we didn't.
Well, no, I think,
fill it.
I
but
saw
not for
lights
that
over
reason. It has been.
No,
For the
I
it's
saw
because
lights over there.
as far as
Maybe
I'm
it
concerned,
was,
if it is, then it's just
Oh, I guess
rainwater.
it
But
was
they
last
didn't.
year, I don't know.
I know that they
Late
didn't
at
intend
night.
to use it this year, is from the meetings.
I
Okay.
confess not to know enough about it to just say we should cut it. I mean,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
understand everyone's points. And I don't know how much it costs to put a little, have those refrigeration pads and things you can put. It's not a big space anyway, right?
No, it's
I
not
mean,
really.
huge.
And then you need power, you need a generator.
Well, we have an opportunity to revisit it. Finance could revisit it as well when they do theirs, and
It could.
preliminary budget hearing
And
comes
for
up again.
and I think
We get
the
more
meeting's
data.
next week, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, the recreation
Rec,
department meeting.
yeah.
I can
You
bring
get
it
more
up at that
information,
point in
and then
time
we
and
can,
get some more
And we
detail
have a
on
meeting
it.
on the 14th,
then we can
Right.
transmit it to the Board of Finance
Right.
information.
right?
Mhm.
Mhm. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Yeah. I'll put a note on that.
Okay. I was over there when lights at night.
Okay. The waste management items are pending. We're doing some analysis on our current operation and whether we need a scale and who should pay what. We went into a little bit of this in the operating budget meetings. So these sort of depend on that result, but we didn't remove them.
It might change, in other words,
Yeah.
depending on that data when it comes
Right.
back.
So if you put a scale in and you charge the haulers, they're gonna pass it along to the customer. Now, the customer, as I'm a customer, are gonna get hit with that, and they may decide they're just gonna haul their garbage to them.
Could happen.
That could happen, yeah.
That could happen. So you're not gonna make any money from the haulers, you're gonna encourage that expense, and you're still gonna get the same amount of trash. I mean, theoretically,
I'm not sure how many people would actually do that.
I don't know.
And I just know that there are other towns that do have that model and record quite a bit of revenue as a result. And I'm not sure what will happen here, but
So what are you projecting for, for the revenue that we'll
we
get?
don't have it all together
You
yet.
don't, okay.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for purposes of us what are we recommending?
Nothing. It has not enough information at this point
Okay.
to recommend anything. But if you just some quick math here, roughly half of our tonnage is brought to the transfer station as opposed to delivered by a truck. I think she told us what she told me.
Half and half?
Yeah. So if we're at 1,200 tons times, say, $80 a ton, it's about $100,000
In fees.
from the haulers. That may or may not be 100% transferred to the resident.
Wasn't there some talk about, I don't want to belabor it, but some talk of the haulers could go somewhere else or something too? Or is everyone charging the same? I thought I remember some
We're the one.
discussion.
We don't charge. We're the one of the only ones that don't charge.
What if we did charge?
There was talk, like you said, Orange, I think, is one that does charge.
They charge. Yeah.
But Bridgeport, for example, we take our trash to Bridgeport. They
Right.
can take their trash directly to Bridgeport as well, but then they incur the costs of whatever they're doing there as well.
Plus, we're on the spot.
So-
That's the spot market. If you take it directly,
Okay.
which means it fluctuates.
Yeah,
We're guaranteed
we have, yeah,
a certain number of tonnage at a certain rate.
okay.
So if you take it on the spot, you're taking a chance that there's capacity and that. You know.
Okay.
But if, generally speaking, the tonnage is gonna be the tonnage, because most of what they're taking to our place is our trash, our
Yeah.
waste.
That's our belief.
So even if, for example, let's say a third of the people who currently use the service were to start doing it themselves, it's the same amount of, our costs are gonna stay the same, because we're still.
Correct.
hiring for-
That's correct. Yeah, our tip fees will be the
So
same.
whatever we make is
Is a revenue item.
a revenue item.
Correct. As opposed, our tip fees will still be the same. That's
Mhm.
correct. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting we do this, but some places just don't take municipal waste anymore. I mean, some towns. They'll just say,
Where would we meet each other?
Well, some places charge for a dump sticker too,
true.
which we
Yeah,
don't.
which we don't, right. There's a lot of different ways to,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'd burn down town hall if we did that.
No,
Right.
Public Works, that's where they get those, not our building.
The last item is the outdoor pool, which we didn't adjust.
So 85.8, what's an outdoor pool inspection?
That's the country, pool at the country club.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, okay.
Scarifying, draining it and scarifying it.
The outdoor pool inspection.
And
So
then
we're draining it and we're
inspecting
inspecting
it and then recoating it with a, it's got.
Okay, so this is when we bite the bullet to resurface.
Correct,
Okay.
resurfacing the pool, right.
So to open that pool this year, it's costing us 85.
This is most likely be done in the
For
fall.
next year.
It's a budget item for this year, but it's not for the.
It's not, we're not doing, this year the pool's gonna open
Right.
without that being done.
It's next.
Well, yeah, in
Yeah.
the spring,
Right.
but I mean, okay, so you're right.
Right, so,
But to continue, if,
Subsequent to that.
so
right,
we're projecting we pay 85.8 and maybe we don't open the
in the
pool.
fall,
So I'm a little confused. Because you're right, the pool's opening up in this season.
this season,
Before we
without,
spend that.
Right.
before we spend it. This will be done in the
And we're
fall
putting
of.
85.8
for-
away to do something in the
At
fall
the conclusion of this
after
season.
this season.
Right.
We haven't made a
But
decision
we
about whether.
may or
we're
may
gonna
not, because we
open
make
the
a
pool.
yearly decision
Right.
whether we even open the pool.
Right,
So we're allocating 85.8, not even knowing that we're going to open the pool. I just want to understand.
That's true.
well, it's.
Is that
in-
correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I would imagine by allocating 85.8, you're sort of committing to possibly.
maybe baby. And also, we have the survey coming back, and I thought that'll be back, and we might make a decision. This is, it's perhaps a placeholder for me.
Yeah, my suggestion would be if we're looking to,
And
if
we-
we're looking to cut anywhere, or whatever, I don't know that this 85.8 is something we should have in.
I'm not
in the
personally not
budget
prepared to
one.
cut it now, but it might be something going forward. That's,
And that's a firm number?
I don't know.
Not really, it's an
Not
estimate.
really.
Well, if we don't cut it now, then it's in the 19 budget,
Right,
whether or not we open the pool.
correct. You'll raise the taxes to support it,
Uh-huh.
assuming it goes forward.
Right. And then if we don't open the pool, we've paid taxes for the sake of paying taxes.
Right.
So let's assume we take, just for the sake of argument, we take this money out of the budget
Mm-hmm.
and we decide to have it inspected.
Inspection's a small part of it.
Um,
It's broken out here. I
It's an
believe.
inspection, and then this includes the cost to scarify or whatever that
Okay,
that
so
is, fixing it.
Correct.
if we take that number out and then we have to do the work, can we get that money from somewhere else in the budget?
Let's see, so the water removal
Yeah.
and inspection is about $6,000, according to this. The rest of it's to refill it and to resurface.
Well, the refilling, we should get the fire department to do as part of their civic duty.
They'll still have to pay
Because
for the water.
they have the capability of doing that.
Right, they'll still have to pay for the water, if I'm not mistaken.
We
Yeah,
pay
yeah,
for
yes,
the water by the
probably.
gallon, we pay for the water by,
Let's share the use through the meter.
I don't know.
we have a meter.
Oh, yeah.
Through
It's
the
a lot of trips.
fire hydrant.
So if
How
you,
much is the resurfacing or whatever, the scarifying or whatever that word is?
it's
That's the big cost, right?
75,000.
That's the big cost.
And that has assumptions built into it,
To
of
David's
course.
point, is there an opportunity for us to fund it if it becomes clear that it's something the town, the residents want to
Sort
move
of all,
forward
it
with?
depends. And you could always use fund balance, you can use contingency. If there
Contingency,
is
fund
some,
balance.
I mean, there's options to do that. It just depends on what else you have going on. And if
Yeah,
it's,
there's other implications because
Yeah.
we have timing issues.
Right.
Right, because
Right.
we'd have to make this decision sometime. I would imagine they'd have to do this sometime before the end of October.
That's correct.
They can't be
Yeah.
doing this
That's
in
correct.
November or
That's
December,
correct,
right?
yeah. So you get the result back, and then you get a better idea of if there's anything that needs to be replaced,
So
if there's any
at that,
damage,
so at that time, we'd have to also have the discussion of whether or not we want that pool open
Mhm.
Right,
for the following year.
right. And if you're going to
Which
fund
is
it.
like August,
Yeah.
July, August timeframe.
So if you put that money in, you're gonna be leaning towards opening the pool. As opposed to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just because
Which
it's
is
in the
not a bad
budget
thing,
doesn't mean
yeah.
we have to spend
That's-
it
yeah, I
either,
don't-
Yeah, that's
obviously,
true,
right?
too.
But
I see there being a concern about taxing
But we
folks
have
not
to pay-
knowing, but I
we
don't
have
see
to
an
pay it
issue
is
at
the
all.
problem.
If we put it in, it doesn't change what the
No, we
circumstances
don't have to
are at
spend
that
it,
point.
right, we
yeah.
may or may not have to spend it.
I know, but we have to charge people for it.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
agree,
that's- I
with
agree.
you.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
That's, I think that's the
We're-
concern.
We've moved ourselves up over to
This is
40
much-
mils,
Yeah.
you know, that's what we've done, because we continually have a budget that has an increase rather than any kind of reduction. So we're gonna be at 40 mils.
We can't be at 40 mils.
No, we're not going to be. Don't forget the Board of Finance has an
40
opportunity.
Oh, okay, so
40 mils is obscene.
As
so
well.
someone's gonna look to cuts, I'm just suggesting
Yep.
this may be something we can look at, that's all. Because if we have to get below 40 mils, something has to get cut.
Okay.
We haven't cut anything yet.
I'll
so-
tell you, I can tell you how much
From
you
a
need.
capital standpoint, what would we need to cut in order to?
I can tell you right now.
So then that decides it if we cut it, right?
What's that?
That decides it.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Just like it being in the budget doesn't mean we open the pool.
That's true,
It
too.
not being in the budget doesn't mean we open the pool either.
So you're taking it out to see what it does to the,
I am.
he is, okay.
I thought he was telling us how much we have to cut to get under 40 mils.
That's what I'm doing, yeah. Let me see, it's probably. I'm gonna say it's about 400,000.
400?
That's
Okay.
40.02, so it's a little over 400.
400,000, good enough.
Yeah, say 425.
So having said it's not. gonna be
425
over
is 40 mils on the nose.
There's what you got to work with. 400K coming out of it.
Right. It's approximately 400,000.
Mhm.
Combination of expenditure reductions and/or revenue increases, right?
What are our options for revenue increase?
There's the transfer station we just discussed, and the building permits. Those are
None
the
of
two
which
major
get
ones.
very close to 400,000.
It's at least, it looks like 100 possible in
Could
terms
be.
of the,
The transfer station,
you know,
yeah.
so that
And
helps.
Possibly, so.
building permits is maybe 25,000 roughly.
Okay.
So that's your 125, 150. And
Okay.
there's 85.
All right.
Should we keep going, or you want to stay on this and talk? Okay.
I don't have any other questions on it.
Okay. We'll get to it at the end.
So at the end, we decide what we're doing with each one of these?
Or you can do it as you go, making motions as you go, and
Yeah.
because you do it the capital in one, or you can, we usually do all one motion. There's usually
Just all one motion at the end.
at the end, yeah.
So we have
But it's one
1.9
motion.
million.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. we have 1.9 million of capital money in the operating budget.
That's correct. Yeah. So when you make your adjustments, then I will. I'll read out the figures, the expenditures or revenues, the mill rate, and then you can
Tony, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
but the 40 that we're discussing is based on what we're seeing here now.
Correct.
Okay, so we'd have to take 400,000 out of what we're
That
seeing
combination of that
in the
and
in
the
the
departments.
departments
Correct.
in order to do it.
That's
Have you
correct.
taken anything out of this at all yet?
We haven't taken anything out of that.
Nothing. You haven't
So
made
we
any
just kind
adjustments to
of,
that.
but are we doing that now, or are we
This
just
is your,
reviewing?
this is the night to do it, if you
So if
want
you
to do
give
it.
us 100 on the revenue side, roughly,
Right.
we got 300 on the expense side to deal
Right,
with.
right.
So are we saying that from a group perspective, that the 85 for the pool is something that we would look to take out? I guess that's what I'm getting at. Or
I guess we can wait to see where we go. We got a long way to go here,
Okay.
right?
That's what I was
We can
asking.
put it on the list, though,
Could, you
right?
could put it on a possible
Put it
list.
on a possible list.
And there was nothing else we went through that we should put on the possible list already? I'm sorry that I
Well,
missed
the
some of that.
transfer, the transfer station was a revenue thing.
Yeah, it's revenue, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You mean from the expense side,
From the capital
From the
budget.
capital budget
on
standpoint.
on the capital expense side?
So do you want to wait till the end,
Yeah, we can go
Okay.
through it.
guys? Good,
Good.
good.
Joe?
Okay. I think we finished capital.
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now we drill down to operating.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for everyone to get to. So,
You got it, you got it.
Yeah.
Joe's
all
almost
set,
there.
yeah.
Mhm.
You got it? Not yet. It's in the front.
Yeah,
You
he's
got it,
got
oh,
it.
you got it, okay, I'm sorry.
There are some departments, there were no changes to. Other departments, there were some reductions. I don't think we made any adds. So we can certainly go through this department by department, and if you have any suggestions on any of the departments, we could,
Good.
so the first is the Board of Selectmen. There were no, we made no changes to the requested budget.
So we've, some time ago, we talked about the Board of Selectmen, you know, at least talking about voting on and making a directive to boards and commissions and departments of a reduction. We decided this year wasn't probably the right year, I think, right?
Mhm.
But I'm hoping we will talk about that, continue to talk about that for maybe next year. The reason I bring it up is I note that maybe this year wasn't a very good year to do it because the Board of Selectmen budget is up 16%. So that's not a very good example to set to other boards and commissions and departments looking for reductions or, you know, hard choices on budget. So I just want to make that note. I mean, clearly it's mostly from the administrative salaries that have taken a significant,
That was
Bump.
51%, and then there was a 268%
Right.
budget increase for general professional services. That's related to CERC,
right,
so,
right, I have no problem with
Yeah.
that. So, I don't think, I guess there's nothing we can do. You know, I have I don't know, but this question, I guess, would cross over to all of these departments, Tony, because a lot of them will see that they're just 0, 0, 0, 0. They just carry forward an amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I presume that every year when you meet with the departments, you talk to them about,
We do.
you know, did you spend that?
Correct.
What'd you spend?
You'll see them throughout the year.
Because in
Sometimes
the private sector, a
yeah.
lot of people spend line item money because they want it the next year.
Right. We
So
do that,
it's important
yes.
that we understand what they're spending it on to make sure that we're not getting
For instance, there are 2 of them in this department, towards the bottom. Other purchase services and meeting supplies.
Right,
Right. So that'll happen throughout the budget as you look.
those will reduce
Yeah,
because we didn't spend it
correct.
last year. We
That's
spent
correct.
less.
Right, yeah.
But it,
I just wanted to make sure we have a really good handle on that because I think it's important.
Agreed. Yeah, it is, and we do that routinely.
and
I could point them out to you. Yeah.
along those lines, because I notice in a lot of the budgets, particularly the more mechanical, like the police department, fire department, building, et cetera, it says repair maintenance, but
Mhm.
there's no indication. It might be zero balance, and usually in a repair maintenance, it's hard to imagine that there's the same amount every year. I'm just not
Yeah.
sure
That's correct. It fluctuates a lot.
how itemized we get in terms of that, in terms of trying to understand what those numbers are and what we could,
Some of that's
do with
difficult if it's like repairing things that you don't know what it's going to be from one year to the next.
Right, and
Yeah.
I understand you have to just put a number there trying to project. But
Right.
at the same token, I
But-
don't know how
we
deep
could
we go
have-
into what they did spend the year
Right,
before.
I mean, you could have a 5 or even 10-year historical actual spend
Yeah.
to get at maybe a better number. I don't know, it just, because Mika's right, 30,000 every year.
Right.
Which is why we got to make sure we're actually spending that kind of money.
How did we go from 61,000 in 2016 on administrative salaries up to 202,000?
I can explain that. In 2017, that was just the assistant administrative officer. Then in 2018, that was changed to put the amount of time I spend in administrative. There's a corresponding reduction in finance.
If you look at Tony's in finance, it's 70 and 75.
Right.
And the rest of it's being picked up here.
Just to more accurately reflect how much time I spend in each department.
Right.
And then they're a new hire this year
Right.
is the rest of it.
One of the things that we took into account with the new hire was that there would be some generation of income as a result of that new hire. Has any of that borne out? Has any of that borne?
Well, we have one pending for $250,000, a grant, and there's, I think, 3 others that she's working on right
Okay,
now.
well, that's good to hear.
But I don't have any response
Well,
yet.
I like
Yes.
hearing that.
Yes.
I like hearing on the revenue side.
Right, and because we did the Sustainable Connecticut thing last week, another grant just came up. So,
Good.
Yeah, well, we were hoping
We're
for.
making it, I hope.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we're going to find out about the
Next week, right?
next week, March. The
Hopefully next couple of
right,
weeks. Yeah.
the Rita Hoff Foundation grant. We should find out the $250,000 one.
What's that for?
Shelter.
It's for the-
Shelter.
The shelter.
Mhm.
How do we do it? Well, you mentioned this. Should I wait on the shelter till we get there?
It's in there.
Yeah, we'll wait till
get
we
there. Yeah.
Okay,
Hopefully,
Take it now, I
hopefully I remember.
lob it back. Write it down right now.
No, it's okay.
I don't want you to forget.
I might. Okay.
Okay. Probate court. We have no.
This is
Choice there.
statutory, right?
Yeah. Statutory, right? Yeah. Town clerk. You'll see. This is an example of a few of the. There are several items here that were reduced to reflect actual. You'll see printing and binding, conferences, office supplies. With election supplies, she suggested what she thought. We took another look at it, and we reduced it to $8,000, acknowledging that if it's more, we'll have to pay for it. But we're not sure it's going to be more.
Are the other line items that are up significant, well, I mean, they're small line items, so they look like they're up significant, but are those because of an election year too, or are they just up?
Yes, that's because of the election
Like
year.
general professional.
There's more legal ads, and there's
legal ads, right, so
yeah.
that's,
I think
Correct.
she reminded us that she has a couple. There might be primaries this year.
She's thinking of
It's
good
Right.
primaries. Yeah.
big. There's a big
She and
election.
the
in November.
registrar came in.
Yeah.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, though, is
So the
it?
registrar, I think, budget did the same thing. It bounced.
Yeah.
naively asking, and another area that I see a lot of the different departments is professional development dues, conferences, things of that nature. Is it? I see the 40 as being the mill rate, just being like have to stay away from. Is it potential for us to say just this year, we're not going to do this, we're not going to fund those kind of
You could do
items
that.
You
specifically because of the budget, and
You could.
we can look at it next year.
There are
things of that
some.
nature.
There are some that are
Possibility.
Some of them are required.
Required,
That's
right.
what I was going to say, and I don't know how we discern which ones are which.
some. Right. We'd have to do some. That would take some investigation. But some are required. Some have to keep. Some employees have to keep up certain certifications. Some
Right.
don't. So we'd have to go through a process to highlight those. But we could.
Maybe we should, I mean, when we get to it, some of the larger departments have a large
Yeah.
line item budget for some of those.
It's true.
Maybe
lot
a
of-
good thing to look at.
Generally, I find the local ones are the ones where you learn the most.
Right, where we get the most
Where
out
you
of
get the most out of, as opposed to the ones where you have to travel to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I find anyway.
The junkets? Is that- I never said that. Okay.
But we can do that as an exercise if that's something you'd want to see. I can list them all, and you just have to let
We
me
could
know.
figure out where we could cut, required versus just as an exercise,
You
but
can
not
always
necessarily
cut the
make a
money, see if
decision.
They figure it out.
No. No. I'm only one person, one vote.
Registrar.
Yeah, and her election supplies, by the way.
Yeah.
You
We're
did
going to
cut-
probably buy that cabinet this year that she wanted. Is that the one?
That's the
Election
last one.
supplies.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Capitol, 3450. Sorry, it's the Capitol furniture.
right. That's the last item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it was zeroed.
No changes to registrar. We just.
And that was also another one that went up
Oh,
Yeah.
Are we
substantially.
doing anything for security for voting this year? Because our voter rolls, I believe, are online. Is that correct?
I honestly don't.
I don't. You mean
You would-
that you can vote? Look.
You can't
No.
vote online, but
No, no.
when you go to, say I'm, David.
You wanna go
oh,
look
you're not
somebody
here,
up?
I don't have you on the list, or
They have it
you're
online.
voting in Bethany. or
They have it
something.
online. I believe
have it
it is
So
online
I'm
for
just
them.
saying, is it vulnerable, and are we thinking about security for that?
I don't know. I would ask the registrars.
Yeah, maybe we should think about it.
Anna mentioned something about that when she did the presentation, but I can't remember what she said. I apologize. That they were part of a test, or I don't remember. I have to go back and look. We can find out.
And just while we're hitting it, because it's another one that's on a lot of the different departments. Things like postage. Is that? Do we already have a
We track for
particular
postage, and we.
plan or bulk or something like
Yeah,
that?
we do,
So,
and we use a postage machine, and we.
so we feel like that
Those are
whatever
accurate.
people are buying
Yeah.
is optimized already. We don't.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Government access television. A couple of minor adjustments there. Again, just reflecting some actual.
And there might be more opportunity for some help from IT,
Right.
right? And
That's
Amity
correct.
when they get in there, so
Yep.
we'll see.
General administration. There's no adjustment there. This is our insurance. We go out to bid for insurance. That'll be more clearly defined. So sometimes that changes later on in the process.
Insurance liability for what?
That's our property, auto, and liability insurance for the town. Yeah.
So we're going to have other entries here for insurance. I spoke to Tony about this, and I don't know whether we can do anything about this year. But Matt made a good point. Matt Giglietti made a good point, saying that Orange is self-insuring.
For health insurance, you mean?
For health insurance, but it doesn't necessarily have to be just for health insurance, does it?
No, doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you could self.
You're
We
self-insured.
could, I mean, we have a $2.1 million premium budget for health insurance.
I think we did it. Weren't we self-insured?
We were,
At one point.
At one point, we were partially self-insured. It was sort of a hybrid.
This is, we'll bring it up to almost 2.3.
A couple of, about 10 years ago, we were partially self-insured.
Well,
And then we stopped.
what I was discussing with Tony was that if we self-insure, and we take that $2.3 million and buy a reinsurance policy to stop loss on top of it, it may be significantly cheaper than what we're paying now. You'd have to, look at the numbers and the actuarial stuff and all that, but we should look at that.
We will go through that exercise. We do it every few years we do it, and we'd be happy to do it again.
Why did we get out of the self-insured?
Because we were self-insured the top like 10%.
Mostly just health.
Just health.
Just health.
Actually, that's not true. We were self-insured for, we were in a risk pool for workers' compensation.
Workers' comp.
Yeah. And the risk pool went under, basically. What happened, they were
Yeah, there was a gap.
lowballing the premiums, and then they had, at the end of finally caught up to them where they couldn't add more. So they were lowballing premiums to add more to more towns.
Right.
And then eventually,
Then they had some bad losses.
and then a couple of bad losses, and that was it. We had like a
But
We lost
$600,000
We had a
assessment.
bill.
Aetna is one of the companies that does reinsurance, and so is Allianz. And those are both,
But the self-insurance,
those are solid companies.
we'll
Okay.
get to that, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's worth a look.
Sure.
Thank you.
I agree.
It's information systems. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think anytime you see this electric, 25,000, 35,000, 15,000,
Right.
I mean, we should be looking at solar panels. We should be getting in on that deal before, we get no more solar panels.
Whatever happened with that? So, remember we were
At the transfer
at the
station.
transfer station and
It,
They couldn't hook it up.
It's a three-phase
They didn't
power.
have
Didn't have three-phase power.
oh,
And it was too costly to get three-phase power to the transfer station.
You have to
they
run
didn't
it
know that before we went through all that.
I think they were hoping they were going to have more. The utilities were going to be more. There were more opportunities, and it didn't pan out.
Okay.
We could still put one in there, but it would be a lot smaller. Let's say information systems.
What's data process?
That's the Amity charge.
Oh. So that's the actual number then?
Correct.
Because we're projected to spend 23,000.
Right. Right.
Okay.
The 28 is just the town. The 25 includes the police department.
Right.
And the software maintenance,
Is that something that they'll look at as part of that
Software
project?
maintenance?
or-
Yeah, most of that is for our financial package, but that's a software maintenance for all of our software packages, tax collector, tax assessor, our financials. Well, a lot of, for instance, our financial package is a cloud package.
Those are fees, licensing fees? Or are those?
Financials? It's general ledger and pay. Yeah, licensing.
No, those
fees.
are licensing
Correct.
fees for all our software that
Correct.
run the department.
Correct. Website, building official, recreation. Am I missing anything?
Human services.
Human services, virus protection, spam filtering. But we'll review all those arrangements once. That's part of our.
So anyone who's part of that they don't have that line item on their budget, correct?
Except
The
for
ones that-
the only one that has it is there's a little bit in police and and some in fire. All the rest of them are here.
so that's with an outside vendor.
Correct.
And is that negotiable?
Some are, yeah. We've negotiated some of them. Some of them are.
They're with multiple vendors, I would imagine, right?
There's maybe 10 vendors in there. Okay, finance is next. See the offset there.
Yeah, that's the offset there. So on the
Yeah, I
down,
see that.
it's split half and half.
Next is tax collector. Any questions? Tax assessor. Here you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accounts that are adjusted. It's a continual process. Board of Assessment Appeals. There's one adjustment there. There was some clerical that was needed last year, but it's not going to be necessary this year. Or next year. Board of Finance, this is the contingency account. You'll see contingency and the audit.
So that's our auditing fee per year.
Correct. It's actually our portion. The Board of Education pays a portion also. And we bid that usually every 4 years or so. We did that. Town plan and zoning.
What's general professional services?
The general professional services was used to give provide assistance with updating the zoning regulations.
That was a planner that we hired.
Right, and she's
So
continuing that work. What I'm not sure what next year if they're going to.
That's Leslie Cream.
Leslie, yeah.
So how many years have we had Leslie Cream?
She was. Let's see, that was.
Because I see the same amount for the last couple of years.
Right, right. This year, that was in 17. This year, it's used for some additional help. But next year, I'm not sure there's a specific plan for that.
Okay.
So. Zoning Board of Appeals. Not much there. Any changes now. Center building.
So, for instance, the center building,
Mm-hmm.
there's not much here except what it costs the
operate
utilities
the building.
basically to run, to open the building.
That's correct. Yeah,
So these should be just historical numbers? That
they are.
always-
And actually, we have it's I have a spreadsheet with the rates and the the usage and the
The microgrid doesn't impact this at all?
microgrid is only used if other than the
Oh,
tax
for-
implication,
Yeah.
which we discussed.
Yeah.
It's only used if the power is out.
It's out, I understand.
Guess we could turn out the power all the time and live on the microgrid, but
Then they'll charge
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
When the power's out, we get charged their
Yeah.
whatever their rate is.
yeah,
Yeah.
get you either way.
And we go out to bid for electric generation and for natural gas. It's come the next few years. Former fire station is the same thing. It's just utilities. This will change depending on what is done with the building.
We
So
have some building upgrades that are pending, as you know, so
Right.
we'll see.
Country Club of Woodbridge. There's one ad here, and that's to groundskeeping service. You probably guess what that's anticipating. That's for mowing of the
Is that the
facility.
mowing?
Yep.
May not need it, you may have a plan.
Repair and maintenance. of the building.
That's
Those are just general things that
That's
we
something-
do, right? I mean,
right. As if something
in
happens,
case.
that's a repair or something that's broken. that we
Who
fix it.
answers the phone over there?
Do they have a phone?
Well, they got
They have
3,000.
If they're alarm lines,
Those are alarm lines?
yeah.
There you go.
So we have that alarm?
Yep. Yes, we do.
Do we care if someone goes in there?
I think we have to have it, right?
We have
insurance
We
for
have
for
to,
insurance, yeah.
We have no choice.
And we have a low temperature alarm, and we have
I asked that same question last year, Joe, I remember.
Equipment,
Yeah. Who was there with the phone?
electric buildings. So the electric's going up.
the electric is 30, 29, around there.
Yeah.
It was a lot higher, obviously, when we were operating the building.
And what, and the
Most-
water?
So-
But it's
so the,
related to- yeah. Sorry.
Matt had suggested that the Board of Finance was considering moving the electric and or a portion of the electric and the water to the pool budget.
Well, it should be, right? Because isn't that the only reason that's on
Correct.
here is?
Yeah, yeah.
So
that
to
came
get
up
a
last
true
week.
picture
Of the
that
pool
we've been
cost.
struggling for a few
Right.
years to see
That's correct.
They're
what the
gonna do that.
financials at the
So
pool
putting that
really
together,
are.
yeah, I'm putting that together for them, and it's my guess that they'll probably do that.
And we should also, but if you're doing that, include Adam and Brad and, MacIver. John talks
We
about
could.
MacIver.
We could put an
he's
overtime
over there
amount.
all the time.
Yeah.
And some of that should be in that budget so we can get a
We could do
true
that.
financial picture.
Yeah.
Who's MacGyver? Which one?
Brad.
It's Brad.
Okay. Hi, Bob. You're not MacGyver.
And I think it's great, by the way, but I think it should be accountable to their profit and loss.
And as much as it's done in every other department, I agree.
Yeah.
In other
Sure.
words, if they spend as much time on the diamonds or things of that nature, then if that's what they do, generally speaking, then that's an overall cost. But if
Yep.
it's something they only spend their time at the pool, then we should get a true accounting of it.
Okay. Police department. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 accounts there throughout the budget that are adjusted for, as we discussed previously, for
So 50220, I'm sure I missed this during the presentation, but that's up. Is that
Right.
one off? Is that
they
one-
added one officer there and eliminated the lieutenant's position.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and they added
But-
an officer's position. Correct.
Right. The officer's position is almost 200,000?
Just under.
Yeah, just under. And I know that's loaded, but it can't be 200 loaded. If we load it up, it can't be 200. So there must be something else in that line, I'm thinking. I don't know.
Not to reduce them.
Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't. Do you?
Karen.
From the 1.3 to the 1.5.
1.3 to
It's
1.5.
their salary increases plus another officer.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so it's a broad base, so
so
25
That's correct.
or so officer increases
Yeah,
plus
plus
the
the-
addition.
yeah.
That's it. Yep.
That's correct.
Uh-huh. Okay. Dispatchers are up, so that's probably just the contractual increase, right?
Right. There's a step. Is there a step? There's a step
Yes.
increase, right? Yeah. So occasionally someone has a step increase.
In addition to the 2.5%.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. If someone's hired, there's usually 4 steps before they reach the top. They get
Mhm,
cost of living and a step increase.
mhm.
We had talked about regionalizing dispatch. Whatever became of that?
Nothing has happened yet. It's at the committee level. And I've spoken with the police commission and the fire commission, and they have not gotten back to me on any of it. So it ultimately becomes our decision, but it has to be investigated. We haven't done too much about that yet.
If we go to regional dispatching, how would that affect that 300,000 number?
It wouldn't be necessary.
It wouldn't
Comes
be.
out.
Is there another fee we pay in place of it?
Yep.
There is. It's all part of an analysis that would have to take place.
I just began preliminarily, looking into it, but I haven't gone any further with it at this point.
This and school are the biggest parts of our budget. So we kind of have to pay attention to what we can do.
We got overtime for dispatchers,
There's
too,
overtime.
15K. And we spent 26 last year. Or this year.
Usually there's a offset. If there's an offset in wages, sometimes, because there's people that, or maybe there's
That
a
didn't
vacant
show up,
position or
right,
didn't
right.
show up, right? Yeah,
So now we have overtime for police officers. Does that include private duty?
does not.
Okay.
No, private duty is a separate fund. It's a self-balancing fund where we charge to cover the expenditure, the payroll expenses.
So we're budgeting 100, but I know we're projected to spend 148.
Because typically what happens is with 23 or 22 officers, there's a relationship between the number of officers that you have, if you have vacant positions. For instance, this year there's been a vacant position for most of the year, so that sometimes results in overtime. But the vacant position will then more than cover for the overtime that's generated. So there's usually a balance between the two.
I see. So because we added that officer, we're going back to the 100.
Right.
That's
Right.
a budget number. Isn't it?
Budget. It's a budget number, right?
How many people?
There's an item here, 52-140, says labor negotiations.
That's for labor matters or the labor advice.
Don't we already pay someone $41,000 for doing that?
It's in the there's one also in the selectmen's line, correct?
The same guy,
person. Yeah,
just split.
It's split.
His overall compensation
Yeah.
is split.
It's split. Yeah,
His overall contract.
So is it 41 and 21?
it's
22,580 here.
22,580 and 41,900. Yeah,
That's the total?
correct.
So this data processing 41,000 here, how does that
That's
relate with the Amity
I will tell you.
new arrangement?
That was when I told you that certain departments have some of their own software costs. Police is one, fire is another.
Mm-hmm.
That's the line. I believe that's collect. Is in there. That's their software program for where they
So
look up all the
that's
vehicles and
really
stuff.
just a software licensing thing again.
Correct.
That's not. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm going to verify that, but I believe that's. Yeah, it's got antivirus,
They may have.
next gen, collect. Oh yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think they bulk their data processing in their software maintenance because they don't have software maintenance here. I didn't see.
That's right. Correct.
Whereas like
It's
for
just
example,
titled
the fire
differently.
department split it out.
Yeah.
So here's a professional development training line item, back to Mika's point, with a 17% increase. Now, I'm suspecting some of that is required, being at least, but that might be something we can take a look at. I don't know.
We could do that.
What is office?
Some of these things, as you go through the budget, like as you indicated, as you look through items throughout the year, it could be a continual process. So
Mhm.
that for next year, somebody could do this year, somebody could do,
What does office mean?
Office supplies.
Supplies. Office
That's supplies, yeah.
Okay. Then meeting supplies are different than office supplies.
Right.
In technical term,
Technical is,
Sorry, I didn't bring my book with me. I should have-
No,
sorry
that's
about
okay.
that.
That's quite all
Meeting
right.
supplies, food,
You typically meeting supplies is food, yeah.
right, for the meetings, yeah.
Thank you.
Technical is medical oxygen, search, professional photo developing services, medical oxygen services, central equipment, searchy, and internet. That's where they pay for their internet also. But I don't think they have much of the cost of that anymore in there. It's mostly for the medical supplies and the photo development.
Thank you.
Next is the fire department.
Before we get there, I
Oh,
just
sure.
want to,
Yeah.
it's difficult. I don't know how everyone else feels, but for me, it's difficult to not having really drilled down. And I know you do the job. I'm not
No, I understand.
suggesting any.
Yeah. But some of
It's
it's
no reflection on what you do. Trust me. But
Yeah.
we have a $3 million police budget, and I wouldn't be competent based on what I know to say something has to come out of here. But I know 4 or 5 years ago I brought forth some comparative data to show that we spend a lot of money on police services. And I know it's a difficult subject because it's health, it's welfare, it's safety and all that. But at some point in time, we're going to have to take a look at this. I mean, the finance cut the lieutenant position, and we brought in an officer, and that's all great, I guess. I can't, without further study, I can't make a determination on that. But I can see that we're still, our budget bottom line is still higher than last year by almost 3%. And it just seems to keep going up and up and up. And at some point in time, I think we have to revisit this. And I can tell you the data I have is old, so I'm not. But what we spend per capita on police services far outstrips any town in the area. And I think we just have to take a look at this at some point. And it's not really a budget discussion. It's not a budget discussion, and I understand that. But it's a discussion that I think has to happen.
Okay.
It's probably one that should start sooner rather than later in terms of anything we want to do for next year, though. That's, if we're going to, it seems
Should.
like
Right,
this
you
year
can't
we had
wait
a
till
short
fall.
time
Don't
frame.
wait until
Right.
October.
Right,
Right.
fall is when.
I'm more than happy to
asking.
bring forward and update the information I had.
I think it would be helpful, and, it's
If
not
everybody,
only the
if
piece of-
everybody's interested in the discussion, I'm not interested in exercising myself again like I did last time and have it just fall by the wayside. If people are interested in having a
I
discussion,
think we need the material in order to have the discussion, and certainly I think we're at a position now where the discussion is
I
required,
mean,
Right, but
Okay.
we have to start,
you know?
as Tony said earlier, because we talked about this.
Right, just along the lines
In
of
the
what we were
fall.
talking about.
We've already given direction to departments, and so it has to be, I
Right,
don't
usually
know,
the-
June,
It's helpful to have,
right after maybe after May, we get the budget done.
Immediately after we do this.
So we do it in
Yeah.
June. I'm willing to do,
if not before then.
if not
Yeah.
before, you
Put
guys want
some-
to do it in May, we can do
We're
it in
talking
May.
about putting some specific
Yep.
time toward
Yep.
those types of discussions.
Okay,
Also,
It could be
what
other
we want to
things.
say to the other departments in terms of next year as far as, okay, everybody just 5%, everybody figure it out. Just tell us what you're going to do to get to that number and
Yep.
show us, and then we'll figure out whether it's an essential service or not. And
Again, if the guidance comes earlier in the process, then we have more time to get it out to the departments, and the departments have more time to figure it out.
Right, so you start your process in like September, October?
Correct,
right?
yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, we
but even if it's over the summer, then
Yeah.
the budgets, you should always be thinking about your, at least that's what I think, you should always be thinking about your budget
Mhm.
and what you can do to improve it.
Mhm.
And,
Good, then let's do it.
Okay. I'll make sure we schedule a meeting to start. Are we on fire now?
Fire, yeah.
Yeah,
Fire,
okay.
yeah.
I can tell you, 50215 is going to personnel
502.
for review.
Oh. Okay.
Yep, so I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Can I find out?
it's the fourth one down.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So that has to do with half a position or something, or a position?
It's just one position.
Just one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about that at the budget meeting. They were looking for a raise space.
So we'll see what personnel recommends on that.
So I'm looking
Technical here is
here,
higher than the
professional
other.
development and training. Now this, I'm sure there's some of this that's required again.
Actually,
But that's a pretty sizable.
this was
amount.
requested, the Board of Finance actually requested a breakdown of that. We're actually doing that for them.
Okay,
So it's my guess is they're going to review that.
okay.
That's 545530, that one?
Well, my
Talk about-
recommendation,
4630.
so it's hard for us to
Yeah,
recommend.
I
54630.
gotta get new
Yeah.
glasses.
Yeah,
Time
54630,
for an
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yep, okay.
35,000 for professional development and
Yeah.
training.
Doesn't want to do it.
Their
The
technical is a
computer-
lot higher than all the others. A lot higher.
Mhm.
Technical, I mean, again, there's a lot of things here that,
We thought maybe
It's hard
some
to
of
know
this
what they
stuff,
are.
data processing, which is 52210, hope I have that one right.
Yep.
And then software maintenance, 53540,
Yep.
hope I have that right number.
And this
Mhm.
computer.
And the technical,
technical,
the 4038, that, you know, that, those all might be revisited once the IT piece,
Right.
you know, comes in, so.
so computer means that's a hardware situation?
Correct. Yeah.
They need a new computer? Or they need more than one, because it's 10 grand.
Right. Right.
Or a server, what, I don't know.
It's a couple of, it's our mostly
Either that or
peripherals.
they use tablets. of
Yeah,
that, too.
that's what it's for.
So I
Tablets,
think it might
computers,
be.
So it's
along those
a,
lines.
it's,
yeah. You know, this kind of stuff.
yeah.
So cleaning custodial services, 53100.
Mhm.
Doesn't that come out of building?
53.
This is, excuse me, they have a service that comes in to clean the firehouse. Building maintenance is for staff. It's the only building where we have a service.
Long time ago, as I remember, it was because of those big glass windows, and I don't remember now, I'm sorry.
So that's, we pay for it, but is it their vendor or ours? Well, someone goes in and does it.
Yeah.
It's a vendor.
Vendor,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who's vendor?
It's a vendor,
Towns
yeah.
or?
The town pays for it. It's the
I know we
town.
pay for it,
Yeah.
but who hires the vendor?
They hired the vendor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have we looked into whether that's a good number or a bad number?
Not
I
recently.
see it's the same number,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know if we couldn't. get
Not
some-
recently. We did a
Might
few
be
years
something
back.
we want to do.
Yeah.
Equipment rental, what's that? 53610.
610. This over here. So I'll go back to it. trash remover, copier rental, linen service, and oxygen canisters.
Linen service?
Yeah, they have towels replacement.
Taking showers.
They
after
take showers
fires, I
after
guess.
fires.
And how about?
Yeah, they have.
How about technical 55120?
That's
That was the one that I thought might get revisited once. we
yeah. A
change
lot of
that
that's
to-
the
it's really on
foam.
I see volunteer,
What is it?
Foam.
Phone?
You know the foam they use for the.
Got it.
52225 volunteer incentives is up 10,000 from last year.
Requested. I don't know that we ever
That was
discussed
related
it, but I know we
to
were talking at one
more
point.
members,
Yeah.
I think.
More members?
You know, they've gotten another 10 members or something. I don't remember. Do you remember what he said at the budget presentation?
They did not specifically about the increase.
Do we have a ceiling on the number of members that they can have?
Not that I'm aware of, David. I don't think so. I think that
I mean, every member costs us incentive, costs us medical.
no, you have to be on the incentives are only provided after you meet a particular set of criteria.
Right.
Not least of which is a certain number of years on that.
What
You
about-
have to be there for 5 years, I
Yeah.
think.
Correct. And
So,
certain
so,
number
we,
of calls.
so we have a subset of firefighters that are moving up to get incentive. Is that,
Yes,
is that what's happening here?
That-
More than like, I mean, I'm just trying to
I don't know.
understand.
I know that could certainly be the case. I know, but in the past I thought it was a set amount regardless. I didn't know that it changed except by
take-
the budget.
No, it's set by the budget. They take the
Yeah.
amount in the budget, and then they have a formula that
Mhm.
determines how much you get, and then it's split up based on the budget.
That's what I had
It's,
thought.
so it's like the number of years based on how many years you've been. If you make over a certain number of calls, right, 20%, whatever it is.
Right, to get this incentive. But
Right.
since we're up 10 grand from last year, there must be
It's-
a set of folks that are now
Have moved
qualified
on,
I know
to
they-
move
right.
up to this incentive.
I don't know.
At one point in time, there was a discussion because they had the set amount of, and if you'll notice, it's past 4 budgets, it's been the same amount. And they distribute the money as they can, and the feeling was like they do have more people who are qualified, they do have more people who are into it, and they were looking for some way to maintain that so that they can keep the thresholds at where they are and still continue to give the folks what they need, the folks that qualify. It's not something that goes up every year. I think it's been 4 or 5 years since
it's
the
been about
last
5
since
years,
the last
yeah.
time it went up, and they ask for it periodically because of that, and that's
Okay, so that may be, but there's still training costs involved with new people,
Mm-hmm.
uniform
There
costs
is.
involved with
That's
new
true.
people.
That's true.
Well, I think, Dave, it's a good question.
I mean,
Does the town determine, or does the fire commission have the authority to determine how many volunteers we have, or do we? I mean, we're paying for it, so do we
No.
have any
I don't
kind
even
of?
think it's the commission, it's the
I
the
mean, we're
Woodbridge
talking about
Volunteer Fire
controlling costs
Association.
across
That's
the
what I
board
meant,
here.
Yeah.
the
I
association.
think.
So we have to pay for the folks that the association feel we should have.
It's a volunteer fire department. We don't pay them salaries and all that stuff, but
No, but we do,
yeah,
we do
we do.
have,
It's a-
Correct.
we
We're-
do have a
we pay them.
$900,000
We have
budget
some
here.
obligations, yeah.
And you,
I think it's
800,000.
honestly, it's never come up in terms of any of the meetings during the time that I was there that it was discussed, and I can say that there certainly hasn't been any indication that there's a overload of people at any given incident that occurs. That I know that they manage it toward how they can have the appropriate amount of people for whatever incidents come up. But I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have with, for example, the chairman and ask, what are the criteria? What are the numbers? How did he work them? So we understand a little bit better, just for the reasons you mentioned.
Yeah, I think
You
you
know?
probably want to have the chief in too,
Yeah.
because I don't know that
Right,
the commission
right.
does it. I think it's
Oh, I
more,
see what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm pretty
Mm.
sure it's more the association determines a lot of these things to the commission, but
And the medical expense, which is also up, is that based on?
That's
number
based
of-
on,
I think more people, but I'm
more
not
people.
sure.
That's definitely based on more people.
And
What
there's
is the
also,
medical
as they
expense?
get
It's physical.
and as they're there
Physical
longer,
exams.
That's the
I
physical.
remember the presentation is that as they are there longer, they have further requirements for a stress test at some level.
Correct. Yeah.
Service or age or something like that,
So
Additionally,
every
there's very-
year,
if I remember his
Yeah,
presentation.
and what it is, Joe, every firefighter has to have a physical within a particular
1
budget.
year.
1 year.
1 year
Yeah.
budgeted time. So it used to be that they'd stretch it out a little bit, and you can have them go 13 months or 12 months or something along those lines. And now they can't do that because because of OSHA and
That's
the
correct.
guidelines.
Yeah.
So they have to have their physicals on time if they're there. And that was something that was instituted in 2016, I believe.
What,
or
the
17.
OSHA, the rules?
Well, no, that it
No.
became that they
It
changed
became-
the policy.
Right, it
because
became
of-
obvious to us because it was a
Right,
a
because
problem.
we needed to do it, otherwise we
They had to
gigged,
do it.
we did get gigged.
right.
And so they had to adjust, so that means all of the ones that weren't gonna happen had to happen this year, so that increased the number from that perspective.
So how do we handle a recommendation to, so for instance, that 35,000 for the professional.
You can make recommendations
So
to the board.
should we say we recommend that the Board
You could.
of
Yeah.
Finance take a look at that?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. And this, it just gives it a little extra.
I think they're planning
Emphasis.
to, but.
But to give it
even
extra
if
emphasis,
Okay,
I think it's a good idea. In any of these other things too, if you have any suggestions, whether it's conferences or,
They've got about $100,000 worth of data-related type, if you count technical somewhere in that, and I don't know how much of it is foam and how much of it is
it's not much.
What do we do with that liability if these firemen get hurt when they're fighting a fire?
We have, even
Workers'
though
comp.
workers' comp covers a volunteer, there's a special section of workers' comp that covers volunteers.
With what kind of limit?
There's limitations on it though. I mean, if you're, if you're someone who makes, $500,000 a year and you're injured fighting a fire, you're not going to get that kind of coverage. It's a standard
It's
amount.
for firefighters.
It's
Well,
like
I mean,
$900, right? It's like $900 a
Yeah,
week
see,
or
I'm
something.
thinking more in terms of a catastrophic injury, like if someone has a spinal fracture.
The medical bills are covered.
That-
It's the medical bills are covered. It's the salary continuation that is based
Well,
on a
you have
firefighter and not
You
on a.
also have disability, there's a lot of components to
Yeah.
workers' comp, right? You have disability and so forth. But that would be all covered under the workers' comp.
It would, yeah.
Because I didn't see any of that in here, that's why I asked. Okay.
Tony, I was just mentioning that maybe the data processing software and computer, and I don't know if there's any of that type of expense in the technical, but just get some detail around that, or just look at that.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're hoping that maybe the IT
Right,
Look,
can really,
see,
that's
would
a
help
lot. That's a
to,
lot. Seems to be more than the police, and they're in the office. I mean, they're actually there more. You know what I mean? So
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next is EMS. Not real.
that's a contract. right?
Contract, yeah.
Yep.
Animal control.
Remember your
Do
question?
you remember, Joe?
Good.
Well, I have another one before I get there. So we're up $6,000 here.
Where?
Yes,
on
that's
regional
correct.
services,
Uh-huh.
Okay.
5%.
Mhm.
Why? Why?
There's, it's payroll related in terms of step increase, I believe, and a small part of it is
So how come we don't, what? So we don't break,
the breakdown is in your book.
it's in here.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, even on some of these others, we'll have like salary.
Right. It's because the way this was originally set up, it's not in the general fund because there's like three, four towns involved.
Okay.
So it's this is our contribution to a total budget.
Okay.
That's why it's not broken down with all the individual line items.
Kind of like pool probate court is.
Yeah,
How
right.
probate court is just regional services.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I do,
it's similar.
I sort of understand, except that I guess.
Other way to do it is to put all the line items in the general budget, fund budget, and then put the revenues in the revenue side.
I don't really care, but this is basically salary increases.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Most of it is for salary.
Salary.
Yeah. There's a step increase in there. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more than the 2.5.
Yeah.
And then my other question is, we're actively seeking that fourth two?
We're talking
Yeah.
to two, actually.
Two?
I got two now. I had a meeting on Friday with another town,
Okay,
so
good.
we'll get busy.
And so are Bethany and Seymour now?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do we have written agreements with them?
We
I
do.
should know this. We do, right?
Yeah.
Are they up this year?
These are the ones that are up at the end of the year.
Yeah, I believe their annual agreements with an automatic renewal.
Unless it
Right.
probably says unless we,
Right.
yeah, so we
Right.
could give
Subject
notice that
to-
we want to renegotiate.
Subject to renegotiating the budget and
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
Because I'm just wondering why. I mean, I understand the division in the operating, but you know, we
vehicles.
we shoulder all the capital investment here.
Mhm.
I don't know why we should.
Especially with the building.
Yeah, I don't know why we should do that, but
It's the way I guess it was
Just
set
a
up
thought.
when
It
you
was,
did it.
it was originally how
Yeah.
it was, but we can re-examine that.
all right. So if I want to look at all the detail, I
Yeah,
can
it's
look at it.
it's the there's all the expenditures, then there's the revenues, breakdown about how much each town pays, the hours of the staff. That's all in here. Okay. Building department. Next is Public Works. There's an adjustment in Public Works.
Which is related to item 2 on our agenda.
Right. And that's the reduction for the street lights. That's assuming you go forward with the LED conversion.
Right. What's the road maintenance?
That's for, read what Warren put in there, so you get a better idea. But it's not for paving, capital paving.
No.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's for.
and it's half a, it's it's a negative 45%.
It's for cold patching, processed stone, asphalt for drainage pipes and structures, guide rail installation,
Okay.
and other road repair items.
So he must foresee less road
Right.
maintenance.
He
and
just
that was-
says it sort of tries to judge where he thinks he's going to need to spend money in the next 12 months or 18 months. And
Well, I would say for $1.5 million budget, non-salary down 2% and overall up 0.93, he did a pretty good
He did.
job.
yes, he did.
What was the
It's not a reduction, but overall, in comparison, it's a pretty good job.
reduction in areas other than the salaries?
Yeah.
Is there any breakdown on the equipment rentals?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. Again, that's in this book, but I can certainly read it out for you.
Okay.
Most of that's tree work. It's rentals of equipment is probably it should be changed to outside contracting services. It's probably a better term for that. But it there's line painting, catch basin cleaning, and tree work are probably most of it. That's probably of the 180, that totals 150. The rest of it is, and most of that, it's tree work is $100,000 request.
We've had a lot of that.
Yeah. And I think Warren was very conscientious of the fact that he had to request a lot of tree work, which is why some of these other accounts he reduced or put off expenses or did what he could to. Yeah. Waste management. There are two changes here involve bulky waste disposal and recycling. And particularly the bulky waste disposal, those tonnages have been going down. If you look at 2 years ago, we spent 41,098. This year is probably 46. Sort of depends on how much bulky waste we have, honestly, as to how much that is. But this is an item that we would be able to charge for more appropriately should we have a scale. You can charge by the ton based on how much we actually pay to get rid of it. You charge that to the person dumping the waste.
Bringing it.
That's sort of the idea.
Okay.
And there's the tipping fees that we discussed about. If you had the scale, that wouldn't change. The revenue to support it would.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Regular overtime.
For waste management.
Oh, yeah, but the transfer station only opens certain hours.
Right.
So where's the overtime come from?
If somebody is has to cover, if there's somebody out on a Saturday, for instance, and we have to cover for vacation, someone's got to come in on a Saturday and pay. We have to pay overtime for another staff member to cover. Or if there's an instance where somebody's out and another staff member has to cover when they're not regularly scheduled to work. That makes sense? Because they're open on Saturdays.
But they work a 5-day week.
Right, but if somebody who works the 5-day week at the transfer station is out, and you have to bring someone else in to cover the transfer station on a Saturday, that's 6 days for that person.
Okay.
That's part of it, right?
And general professional services?
That is,
That's up $5,000.
yeah, that's for, I know part of that is haz waste collection. We participate in a regional haz waste collection site. Where is that? Here we go. Yep, and there's a satellite haz waste collection, regional haz waste program, and deep permits, deep stuff that we have to do at the transfer station for testing. And there's also industrial stormwater costs, groundwater testing at the landfill. We have a lot of requirements to test the groundwater at the
There's
landfill.
just one can of paint mixed in.
Right.
Somebody puts
The
one
poor-
can of paint in.
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
Everything has to be tested.
But we test the runoff coming off the old landfill. That's capped. Building maintenance.
Mediation 0, so we skip that.
Yeah, I skipped that. Yeah. Human services. There's one change here. It's the gas.
It's programs and publicity. I mean, I guess I know what it is, but they feel they need 20% more this year than
Yeah,
they did
there's a
last
change because they took. Let's see, yeah. There's a part-time all other.
year. Yeah, up here.
3, 4, 5, 6. They eliminated a staff position and they plan to hire someone on the outside to do $2,200 for a part-time
Well,
arts and
part-time
crafts.
all other is only down
Seats down.
$900.
But there's increases, 2.5% increases for staff.
Oh,
And then, so that would normally be going up 2.5%,
okay.
but because of the reduction, it's now down. And that's transferred to,
Over here.
programs of publicity. Let's see, recreation. There's another one that's down. Actually, there's a reduction.
I think we gotta give kudos to John where it's due, right?
Right,
Absolutely.
right. And this is one of the departments that's heavily subsidized by fees. So in addition to,
Yeah,
compared to other departments.
Dr. Lober may wanna talk about that, I don't know.
Yeah, there was.
Is it a revenue issue?
There was a program that was cut to get these numbers down last year, and it was actually a program. It was an afternoon swim program up at the country club, and it was eliminated to eliminate some salaries. It actually was revenue neutral or generated money, and they're planning on reinstating it this year because so many parents requested, that particular program because they would put their children in the day camp in the morning, and then in the afternoon they're expected to come back up to the club and have the kids in the swimming program. And instead, they had to look for other programs like the JCC. And the way they hire their staff there is they will only hire enough staff to cover the number of campers who are signed up. So it's revenue neutral or they make a little money. So we shouldn't look at just the expense side on that.
But they brought it back.
Yeah, they did.
Well,
They're
that's
doing
good.
it this year.
So I guess the overall point is we don't wanna cut a program on the expense side if it's
What pool do they
generating.
go to? They go to
I think they go to the
outdoor or
I
beach?
thought they went, well, I'm not 100% sure, but I thought they went to the outdoor pool. It could be beach.
Okay.
If it's,
I'm not
is this the
sure.
swim lessons?
Was that?
Was this the program that included like the swim lessons and
Yeah,
with the
in the
kids?
afternoon.
That was, I know that there was a program that they did cut and they're putting back that's on the outdoor pool.
It is.
So I'm assuming that that's what you're referring to in the afternoon specifically. So,
Okay.
So anyway, it's a good reduction, so that's good. Applaud them.
Pool and gym.
This is Beecher.
Right,
Yeah.
beach pool, yeah.
Looks like it's all related to contract,
It's, yeah.
Any changes?
Parks Department is, a couple things happening here. There's a few, you'll see some reductions in a few accounts to sort of reflect where we actually think the spending will be that year. So two of the accounts. We're hoping to do some of the existing work that was under the capital. That's work to the tennis courts here. Hoping to do that in the current year, so we can save it in money in the following year. And we suggested that Adam had requested some additional weeks to help, and we just adjusted that a little, so that he could still get some extra assistance, but not quite as much as he had requested. After that is the Woodbridge Outdoor Pool. There's no changes to that.
Also a significant reduction,
Mm-hmm.
which is good.
Thomas Darling House. That's we bill directly for that. So all these expenditures are covered. We bill the Historical Society for these expenditures. So that's a pass-through. Library. I don't think we didn't make any adjustments here. Just you can see there were some adjustments throughout the budget to reflect actual by the department. Conservation Commission. There's This is essentially brought back to last year's budget, which is usually what they spend every year. The $8,000 that was requested was for, should there be some appraisals? And we discussed it and thought that, should there be an appraisal requested, that we could deal with it at that time?
We spoke with the chairman of the Conservation Commission. He said that's fine. Should he need it, he knows it's there. As the needs arise, we'll fund them.
Nice.
Economic development?
Part-time clerical was reduced because of the
CERC, yeah. That's what general professional
Yeah.
services is, to fund CERC,
Right,
to attend their meetings.
right.
Yeah.
It's in another line item now.
And the wetlands, employee benefits. This one is, because I don't have information yet from the state for retirement and health insurance or workers' compensation. Those are typically adjusted later on in the process. These are just estimates at this point. The state usually comes up with sends out a match for retirement, which is a percentage of salary that we have to pay to help to fund retirement. After that's debt service. There's a reduction there.
Yep.
The big question on debt service is the country club. And the radio, let's start with the radio. You'll see it has the radio in there for the first interest payment for the simulcast radio system. So that assumes that we borrow the money in, say, July, and then the first interest payments due 6 months after that. That would be that $26,000. The country club fluctuates because they're notes. So at some point you have to convert those to bonds. We've had this discussion before.
Yep.
And
Well, do you think it's getting close to that time? I mean,
yeah. Well, I think we can only do it, I think, 10 years or 12 years. There's a limit on how many years you can actually roll notes. But beyond that, I think the market's starting to move less. We've been lucky with a low interest rate environment. I think that's changing.
Time, right?
Approach 3%.
Right.
So how do we go about that?
I would just have to borrow it. The implications of it are we have to deal with the taxable versus non-taxable. Right now, they're taxable notes. So there's implications to tax-exempt notes or tax-exempt bonds that you can't use it for certain things or sell it for certain purposes. It's a bigger discussion than just here. And should you want to reduce the amount you owe, the time to do it is when you have notes, as opposed to bonds. You can't really do that once you issue bonds. Or it's costly anyway. So if you owe $5 million and let's say you want to reduce it because you sell a piece of it, for instance, and you want to reduce it, the time to do it is when you have notes, and then you just borrow the net of the two, as opposed to borrowing. Once you borrow on bonds for say $5 million, that's it. If you get $2 million and you have the bonds, then it's very difficult and costly to then pay those back. That makes sense.
So when do we have that discussion?
So I have to know by the beginning of June, because the documents are usually out on the street by the end of June. So we have to put all the documents together for the market.
So we better put this on the agenda.
Yeah.
real
Remember, we
quick.
had it on last year's agenda. We decided to
Yeah.
take it down the road
Well,
one
now
more
we
year,
can't
but
do that.
Right.
we knew we were going to be facing it again, and really facing it this year,
Yeah.
because it's getting close.
Okay. Woodbridge Board of Education.
As, do we know if enrollment has increased to the same degree, fortunately, as, like, for example, 2016-17 is almost $1 million less than 2018-19? Do we know if that's enrollment or?
Say that
Right,
again?
am I looking at that right? If you look at the actuals for 2016-17, it's 13.7,
13,749, yeah.
and it's 14, so it's $1 million. So since
In 2 years.
2 years, right?
Right.
I'm just
What's
wondering-
driving that 2 million? I don't know off the top of my head. We'd have to get that information.
Can we ask Superintendent Gilbert that question?
There we go.
Be glad to.
Thank you. Can we, or is that?
It's up to you, I guess. I mean,
Good if you want.
Certainly anxious to
you're
know.
here.
If I understand the answer to the question, what's the percentage increase relative to the percentage of enrollment increase? Is that what you're asking?
Right. In other words, what's driving the $1 million increase over the last 2 years? Is there one particular area? You know, I know special education has been a big driver. Is that what it is, or?
So a lot of it is enrollment increase, just the students in the actual school.
Right.
We've increased from last year 799. We ended up the year we're up to 846 at this
That's what
point.
I'm looking for.
So
Okay.
there's 50 students more. That's, I don't know, I think it's about a 7 or 8% increase of enrollment.
Where were we in 2016-17, the year before?
So I think that year was around, that number I don't have off the top of my head. I think that's around 770.
It was
Started
even
around
less.
770, it's about 790,
Okay.
799.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
So 50 students at 14K a student is 700,000.
There it is. That's that alone.
I don't know how much it is.
It's more like 16 or 17.
So whatever, that's even, so that's
That's,
pretty much
that's
it
why I was
right
asking.
there.
That's exactly what. Thank you. Thank you.
And Board of Education, we'll keep anything about that.
Right. That goes to the voters.
Capital we discussed. And the last thing is revenues. And just a couple of things for your, just to go through here. So far, we've heard nothing else on state revenue. So if you look at the intergovernmental section, that's 946, 910. That's currently where we are up to the latest information. We've heard nothing about any further reductions or adjustments on that. The two items that we could possibly have adjustments to are the building permits, currently at $150,000, and transfer station fees currently at $50,000. Those are the two that we're going to work to possibly get more revenue from. If you go further
I'm
down,
sorry, Tony, you said building permits, and what was the other
transfer
one?
station fees.
Transfer station, right below it.
Right
Okay,
below it.
Thank you.
If you go further down the list, a couple other things to highlight for you. There's the Amity surplus funds. That's $227.19. If you recall, every month in our report, Amity's returns say $530,000 roughly. This budget contemplates keeping $220 of it in the current year, 19, which is what we had in 18. So there was no adjustment. You can certainly change that if you want to put more or less. The problem with putting more in that is that next year you have a $250,000 or $300,000 amount that you have to get. If you don't get that in the following year, then you have an automatic increase in your budget.
Could you
You know what
just
I mean?
explain again, not too technically,
Okay.
where that money comes from?
Sure. So at the end of their fiscal year, they do an audit.
Uh-huh.
And if they have money remaining at the end of the year that they haven't spent, they return that to the towns based on the percentage that we contributed to that budget to begin
Got it.
with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's what I figured.
And two other things I want to bring to your attention. One is fund balance appropriation. That historical amount, $400,000, seems to be what is historically a good number for the town our size. And most years we make that up. Some years we don't. Most years we do. And then private duty is at the bottom. That was what you were asking about?
Right.
Yeah. So we have a private duty fund that basically washes the expenses, for payroll expenses. So the money comes in from the vendors, and that covers the payroll expenses. That revenue we recognize is for, we charge an admin fee, car use for the car. It covers FICA and Medicare and all the related payroll costs. And there's also a fee in there for time to process the bills and all that. So there's an admin fee we charge, and that's the revenue from that admin fee. So let's say the total expenditure for, we may take in $350,000, say, in private duty. 200 pays the payroll, and 145 is for the fee. It's something like that. That's it.
So that's our first budget pass.
That's it.
And now I guess we vote, correct? Or do we make any specific changes other than what you and I
There's a
did?
number of information requests,
Yeah.
which, and subjects to review in the future, which I've listed here, and Karen and I'll go through those, make sure our notes are the same. And we can start on that, but there were no actual adjustments.
So what's the total number, just to get it moving forward, what's the total number if I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance?
The expenditures, $50,040,177. Non-tax revenues of $3,116,409. Amount to be raised in taxes of $46,923,768, and a mill rate of 40.37.
Okay. So I'll make that motion that we send that, and then we need a second, and then we can talk about it. We have a second? Oh. Gee, and I promised Sandy we were going to get something to her.
We're recommending that we actually propose the 40 million.
That's the charter
Mill
process,
drive,
right?
right.
Yeah, correct.
40 mils.
To the Board of Finance
Right.
for their, so,
But we have incomplete information.
it's
A
true.
lot of these big numbers.
You wanted further information?
We can get further information. You can have another meeting,
You want to have another meeting? We can have another meeting.
or you
Once we
could,
have that.
yeah, we could do that. Or you could suggest to the Board of Finance that they review certain items. We can do it that way. That's been done in the past, that they review certain topics, and we can get that information for them. That's another way to do it.
Well, we can't talk, do we have a second on this? So we can talk about
I'll
this?
second.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. So now, what's your pleasure? Want to have another meeting? Or do you want to make a
Well, I don't know,
recommendation?
there was a suggestion before that we are not gonna.
That we
have
what?
We were not gonna have a mill rate of 40.37.
Right.
That's what I heard.
Mhm.
And now we're being asked to vote on a mill rate of 40.37. Now, I know that it's not really our decision, because it goes to the Board of Finance, and it's hard, as we talked about before, for us, based on what we have and not really getting involved in these numbers, where we know we're going to cut, which is why I think it's essential that we start right away after this and start for next year. And without us setting a directive to people that you got to come back with some reductions, that next year we're going to be at 42,
Mhm.
because that's where we're going.
Absolutely.
So it's up to this board. Since we don't decide on the budget, that's by charter in the hands of the Board of Finance. I think at the very least we have to set the tone and say that we just can't sustain these budgets going
Yeah.
forward.
I'm looking at the requested, and it was 43.93. Requested. Put it
Yeah.
all together, yep.
Because nobody told them any differently.
Yep.
So they're going to request what they're going to request, you know. And in the meantime, in 10 years, we'll be at 50. Because we don't put any brakes on the spending. And we have to start having,
Beth, your thought that you mentioned in terms of getting together again with a very clear, from my perspective, clear intent of taking this back with the intent of cutting 400, 500,000 or whatever it is from our perspective, just from a recommendation standpoint.
To
Get
the
it
Board
under
of
the
Fin- take
to the
another
Board.
400,000.
Understanding that they're going to do what they're going to do,
Right.
and we don't get the final say or anything, but just to say that we don't want to see the 40, associated with the 40. That's
Just
kind
to
of...
share with you, did I bring my budget with me? I believe you have until, for the charter, March 1st.
Oh,
to actually make our recommendation to
Big time.
Board of
Right.
Correct.
Finance.
Right, Jerry?
March
Yeah.
1st.
March 1st, yeah.
So,
so
Would
And
you
then the
be-
Board of Finance
Water?
has till April 1st to make recommendations to the town.
right.
So what Mika's suggesting is kind of an offshoot of, us setting it early and saying to the Board of Finance, we gotta find $300,000 or $400,000.
in
It's
my
kind of
mind,
easy for us to say, we couldn't find it
but
ourselves.
I have, based on what I've seen them do in the past,
Mm-hmm.
I would fully expect that they will. Without us, I just based on and what the conversations we've had with them,
Keep
and
in
things of that
mind
nature.
that the police already took out a position. I mean, I
Right.
don't know where they're gonna find, of the large budgets, I don't know where they're gonna find. It's not my, I mean, I'm just suggesting it's gonna be
Right.
tougher for them perhaps this year because police is, other than the school systems, the police is the largest budget and they've already, that commission has already taken out a position.
My thought, Joe, is something along the lines of, and it amounts to something, but not necessarily 400,000. But taking a position where, for example, we say you got to cut your telephone bill by 10%. Everybody, whoever's got phone on here, it's got to cut by 10%. You've got $900, cut $10.
Well,
You
we
got
talked about those
23,000.
professional fees and things like that.
Right, things of that
too.
nature, to get to a number that's it may be just a matter of just sending a message, or and I don't know, it may be futile, maybe not, not worth that effort.
Well, we could certainly send a message, what we have in mind, to the Board of Finance when they
Right.
get it. That, but if you guys want to make further cuts or get more data before you do it, it's up to you.
I just feel, I hear what Mika says and I don't disagree with it. I just feel that maybe if we have some time, we should get some more information and at least make some cuts ourselves rather than to just say, hey,
Yeah.
it's your
The first
football
is-
now and you make all the cuts.
First is
We
next
did
Friday.
do some. We
The
did do
first is
some
next-
in a
no, I'm
sense.
sorry,
We
next
started with
Thursday.
43.93.
Next Thursday, right.
Yeah.
And together,
Well, you guys did some,
We
I
did.
guess. We
bring it
didn't
to you,
because-
and you guys can certainly make more. We got it down to 40.37, but if you want to make it further, we can have another meeting. Maybe with some of this data. I don't know if you can get it all before.
I mean, it is hard for us because we rely on you guys to do the work and all.
Mhm.
We don't get down
Yep.
into the nitty gritty and the dirty of this stuff. And
Yep.
It's not by charter necessarily our position, unfortunately, but it is the Board of
It's the
Finance.
Board of Finance who really does this. We
That's the
did.
Board of Finance's
We
responsibility.
drilled down a lot. We've been, Tony and I have tried to do the best we could with, most of it. And so if
So
you want to have
at the
another
very
meeting,
least, maybe if we send it to them and suggest certain cuts, but also that they take a look at some of the things we've talked about here.
I think we can definitely
The
do
pool
that.
Right.
and the professional fees.
I got the
conferences,
Conferences,
looking at all that, deciding.
Utilities.
yeah, utilities, the incentive information,
Data props.
um,
And I think there were a
data
couple-
processing I have.
Data processing, yes,
Yeah.
all the technology
Training.
type.
So he has
Yeah.
a list of about 10 items.
10 items,
which we could make as part of our motion.
We could,
If you want
if you'd
to
like.
do that.
Well, I think we have to do something.
So would you like me to
And I don't
make,
think there's a lot of time if March 1st is when we have it done, in terms of trying to schedule something, get it done.
No,
We need to do
next
so
week.
from a practical standpoint, yeah, so.
so how
And
about if
certainly-
I make a friendly amendment or a friendly, just, what do I do to get rid of that motion? I forget.
Well, you can withdraw it,
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion. How about that?
and then Mika withdraws
Withdraw
the
the second.
second.
You
And I'll
withdraw
withdraw
the
my
second,
second.
okay, thank you. And I'll make a motion that we approve the budget of,
Recommend.
recommend
Right.
that we approve budget to the
No,
board.
you're
No,
gonna
wait a
No,
recommend
minute.
no, you're making a motion that we recommend this budget.
Right.
to the
This budget to,
board.
with the, do I have to read all the numbers, or? No?
What you could just say, oh, yeah, no, the numbers that I mentioned, Jerry has got
Okay,
them
the
down.
number that Tony mentioned with an increase in the grand list of 40 point, or making the grand
Mill rate.
list 40.37.
The mill rate's 40.37.
Sorry, the mill rate, right, okay. The grand list, gosh, sorry. And then do you want to read the 10 items that we're going to ask the Board of Finance to look into?
Yes.
Read it into my motion, right? I'd like to do that, if you don't mind, Tony.
I'll name some of the topics that we discussed. If you have any others, Karen, you could feel free to. So, the custodial services at the fire department, the volunteer incentive discussion at the fire department, conferences in training,
In all departments.
all departments,
Right.
yeah. Computer and data processing in all departments. Moving
I would say technology, yeah. and
Technology, yeah.
All technology.
all technology related items. Moving the labor, electricity, and water into the pool
Mhm.
from the country club and from maintenance.
3 of them, right? You said?
Yep,
Yep, okay.
labor, electric, water. Yeah. I'm not sure we'll have that for this meeting, but there's the possible self-insurance of healthcare.
I don't know if that's a budget too.
Right, it may or may not be, but the ice rink.
Yeah, yeah.
The, Pool resurfacing.
Right.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the ones I have. Anything I missed?
Karen, you got any more? No? Okay, so,
So that's the motion. Is there a-
Second?
yeah, so,
We need a
I'll second
second? Okay.
The only other
Any
thing I
further-
have, it's not dollars, was the cap on the volunteers. Check with,
Right.
see if there's a
oh,
cap on the number of volunteers. the
yeah,
fire
that's
department
not,
can
That's
have.
not right.
not really
Yeah.
budget, but we should understand that, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay,
Okay.
motion firsted and seconded. Okay, thank you.
Good point.
Any discussion? Yes.
Yeah, my vote will reflect that I'm not voting for the tax collector's budget because of
Right,
my wife being tax collector.
fair enough.
Has it been done in the past by Ed and Lawrence? I remember used to do it.
Can we put in a proviso that we recommend this budget provided with these items, the Board of Finance reduces this budget by $400,000, so we're below 40 mil?
Well,
I don't know if we can
well,
do
we
that.
don't have to say, because don't forget it's revenues, and so you
Right.
don't necessarily have to reduce the expenditures. But if you want to just say to get it under, to get the mill rate under
I would just say
40,
mill rate, yeah.
that's something different.
Yeah.
Don't tell them how they have to do it.
Right.
To get the mill rate under 40. Under 40.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
want that as part of the friendly amendment? Or do we have to put that in the?
I mean, I don't think, I mean, that's 39, 40, they're numbers, right? I mean, we say 40. The point is, it's increasing every year, you know? I mean, I'd like it to be under 40, but if it's 40,
But that's a
They can only
discussion
do what
for,
they can
I
do.
think, after this, like we have to drill down big time after this budget season. Right?
I mean, I don't
Maybe even
mind saying
sooner.
we'd like to see it
Mhm.
less than 40, but
I mean, I don't think you can walk the streets of Woodbridge if we vote for this budget at 40 mil, you know, without looking over
Well,
our shoulder.
it'll hopefully change before May when we all vote for it, including the taxpayers.
Right, so but what David's saying is our direct, our advisement to the, as part of our recommendation is that they find a way to keep the mill rate under 40.
I don't want to go through what we went through last
So-
year, we recommend this budget and nobody wanted it, and then it comes back as, well, you voted for this budget. I mean, I don't want to see that again. And you know what I'm referring to.
So are there other things you'd like to change as part of this right now tonight?
Tony's
then?
got a whole list of things.
Okay, but you don't want to do any specific line item changes this evening, other than,
We'll
We
put the
did so
data
far.
together for the
Right.
Board of Finance.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's hard for us to go through these tonight and say we're going to cut $300,000 out of here because I don't think I have the knowledge to do that.
I think the two of you are so much closer to it that what you've done already is
He's better than I
You know what I mean?
My
But-
first year.
yeah, but you're so much closer that, I kind of.
Well, you work with them every day, you talk to
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
you meet with
So you
them. I mean,
understand.
We did.
all I see are numbers
We
on a
went,
piece
we
of
went
paper.
line item to line item to
Right,
line item.
right.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
to your point, I understand your point, but
Yeah.
it's very difficult for us. It's not our charge under the charter. I mean, we could not vote for this,
I
but I
understand
mean, it's not necessarily our position.
The whole purpose of presenting it the way we are, in my opinion, is to demonstrate that this board is very interested in turning this around. Is very interested in starting, and the process is so far down the road at this point in time that we may not be able to impact that tangibly now. But I think we're all committed to making sure that next year, there is a tangible
Right.
impact we have in terms of what's presented to us, so that we can in turn recommend something that the Board of Finance can be very comfortable with, and the town can understand that we're doing
I
the
hope
right
that's
thing.
true.
That's what
I hope
I
that
think we can. I really
I
do.
hope
feel
we
can.
do have that consensus on the board, because then finally we can start to maybe change the budget process. I mean, to me, that's really a change in the budgetary process and the involvement of the Board of Selectmen in the process. So I think that's very important that we do that.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second, and we have a list.
Does the motion include advising the Board of
Board of
Finance
Finance.
that we'd like to see the mill rate?
It
Under
could,
40?
we have to revise it.
Well, that's
Do that?
David's request, that's why I just,
Yeah.
it's your motion.
For whatever it's worth, if I were them, I said, well, why don't you recommend that to me? Well, why didn't you?
No, I don't disagree.
Cover
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
listen,
think
You
there,
know,
I think
to me,
they,
it's like, well, then tell me what you're recommending. If I was sitting in their spot, that's what I would say. So my sense is
but
that
we have all
we let them
these,
do what they do.
but we have all these things that certainly, these 8 items or something
Mm.
that certainly will, hopefully,
Impact.
we've sent them a message that we want this looked at, so we can do that. And I'll be at the Board of Finance meeting, so I can
Okay.
pass that along.
I don't know about the telling them we would like it more than, or come out less than 40. I think that's what they do. And I don't think I did enough of my own. What you did. What
Yeah.
you've done is what
Right.
what the work is to say that I would make that recommendation. So I would leave the 40 out and with the trust that that's exactly what they're going to be looking to do. They're going to make it as little as they possibly can. They're going
Okay, but I'm
do the
happy
right
to
thing.
pass that along.
Okay.
If you'd like.
to please.
So do you still want part of the motion to, well, the way it was said was to get mill rate under 40?
I don't feel that's essential in order to
You do?
move forward. I don't
You
feel
don't?
that's
I don't
essential to
either.
moving forward, but
Because I think it's going to happen, but I'll tell them.
what do you
If you
think?
want it in the motion. Anybody, Joe?
No.
No? No?
Joe?
David?
No, I mean,
I see where this vote is going, but
I think we're talking about it right now, David. I don't
What's
think
that?
I
Right, we
don't think
haven't
we
voted.
voted. I think
We
we
haven't
talked. I
voted
think
yet.
we're talking right now.
Okay.
Make your
I
case,
think-
and this is still democracy,
yeah.
sort of.
I mean, I hate to vote on such a large budget, but we've got several pieces of this budget which can be revisited.
Mm-hmm. With more information.
And the Board of Finance will do that. In the past, they have done that.
Right.
yeah, or we could get more information, have a meeting next week and cut the 300 ourselves if you wanted to do that.
When does the Board of Finance meet for this?
Seventh, right?
March 7th.
But you need to make your
By
recommendation by
March
March
1st.
1st.
We have to do it next week.
Mhm.
Listen, we're not in a great position. We never are.
No, I know.
Because we rely on, we don't really, it's not our position per the charter to actually approve the budget or set the budget. That's for the Board of Finance.
Right.
Which is why we started the discussion months ago about what can we do, and that is we can start early like we're talking about doing now and set the culture that we want reductions and we want this or we want to look at that. We talked tonight about maybe looking at the police from a global view and seeing what that's all about. You know, there are things that we as a board can do to influence the budget. It's not necessarily through the budget process, but we can do it outside of the budget process before it actually
But
gets
to
to the
your
budget.
point, I really think we have to do it early for next year. I think it's at some level, right now, can't do it.
I'm willing to do it in
Right.
March, so you set the agenda. I mean, I'm
Okay.
willing to do it in
Okay.
the next meeting, start.
Okay.
I agree with you. It's got, because it's not really a budget thing, it's a policy thing.
Right.
To me, this is
That's
really
true.
policy. It's
Yeah.
not budget. We set the policy. We don't necessarily set the budget.
So, given that, it's certainly my position. I think that we've done some, I felt that Tony and I did some good due diligence to get to where we are tonight. We have some items to look forward and to ask the Board of Finance to look at.
Yeah.
And I'd recommend that we send it to them as we've gotten to right now tonight. That's my opinion. We have a motion and a second. We can further discuss it.
No, I think we've
discussed it.
have. So,
Okay.
And I think we only
So
have
the
one-
vote is to
we only have
recommend-
one
I
choice,
will,
right?
I'll call the question then.
Okay.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, thank you. Now we have one
Item
more.
2.
What?
Item
Item
2.
I
two.
know.
Don't forget item 2.
Everybody do a field trip?
I did.
Okay.
I did half.
You did not?
I did half.
You did half, okay. So, just to sort of give a little history about why we're here very quickly, because it's late and I'm sorry. The item is item 2, discuss proposed UI LED streetlight conversion. We had a meeting last week, as you know. And Tom Cariglio from UI came with a proposal, and our agreement was to go out and take a look. And hopefully everyone's made a decision on the Kelvins and also signing the contract. So I guess first thing is, do we want to have a discussion on what everybody thought about with the field trips? Whether they wanted the 3,000 kelvins or the 4,000 kelvins? So we can talk about that a little bit, and then
I'm a
That'll-
3,000 Kelvin proponent.
I am too.
Excuse me, what did you say?
I'm a 3,000 Kelvin proponent myself.
I am too.
It's an
also-
increase it's a increase from what we have right now. From a safety standpoint, it adds to what we have,
Right.
but it doesn't, it's not it's not too much.
Right. Okay. Anybody
Yeah,
else?
I mean, I would agree. I drove around and I noticed that, the high pressure, I guess the sodium lights that we have,
Mhm.
you know,
The orange guys now.
yeah,
They're very
they kind
orange,
of look
yep.
like a flashlight in a cereal box. They're very
They
dim.
spread out too.
Right.
The lights that we have in orange, I do not think would be appropriate to our town of 4,000 Kelvin. They're more appropriate to a parking lot or a
Business
They're
district.
very white.
They're very white.
Yes.
And what I found, with my old eyes, I found was when I would drive under them, I would feel my pupils constrict, and
Really?
then they would,
Wow.
but they do that.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
the 3,000 K light, they didn't do that.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, they don't look as bright, but they offer as much illumination.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think anybody who has a house on a corner with one of these 4,000 Kelvin lights would be very unhappy. So I vote
Okay.
for the 3.
So, Joe, you said already the 3s. Mika,
Threes.
Joe, Di?
I'm fine with 3.
Okay. So, I don't remember, we didn't vote to approve the contract, correct, with UI? Sort of, everyone had a chance to look at the contract, review it, but it was just pending upon,
Mhm.
Jerry had reviewed the contract, as I recall, and said it was fine. So I will make a motion that we vote to approve the contract as presented at the Board of Selectmen meeting last week with UI for installation of UI LED street light conversion of 3,000 Kelvin lights.
Authorize you to sign
I'm sorry, what?
we'll authorize you to sign the.
Okay, thank you. Authorization, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Nothing else on the agenda. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.